Hello, everybody, and anyone joining us here through Microsoft Teams. Welcome to the October 20th Select Board meeting. Before we get started, I do want to read our public participation policy. The Hatfield Select Board welcomes everyone to its meetings and all other public meetings of the town of Hatfield. All regular and special meetings of the boards and committees of the town of Hatfield shall be open to the public and shall conform to the open meeting law. Executive sessions are closed to the public and will be held only as prescribed by the statutes of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It is important to recognize that the open meeting law affords the opportunity to listen to the proceedings, but not necessarily participate. During meetings of the Select Board, an attempt will be made to find a balance between hearing from members of the community and conducting the required business of the Hatfield Select Board. We'll start as usual with some announcements. I have a couple of things. One, last night was the first in the series of 3 municipal vulnerability preparedness meetings, which this is the town got a grant to cover the costs associated with looking at our vulnerabilities and our strengths with regard to events that could be exacerbated by climate change, things like flooding, drought, severe weather, and there's 3 meetings, 2 hours each last night and the next 2 Monday nights. I was joined by Ed, which was great. And sorry, that wasn't a dig. Oh. Marlene was there. We had several people from town boards, Bob Flaherty. We had Stephanie from the planning board, some residents, some business owners, our school superintendent, really well attended actually, and really interesting dialogue. So looking forward to the rest of the meetings, but I did want to let people know that it's a really interesting exercise actually that we're doing, and ultimately putting us in better standing to qualify for grant funding that might allow us to do some things that will protect our, whether it's our infrastructure, our buildings, or whatever, from damage from some of those events that could occur. So there was that. I also yesterday had the opportunity to welcome, there was a kayaking trip down the Connecticut River that included our legislative delegation, Secretary Theorides from Environmental Affairs, the Deputy Commissioner of Mass Department of Agricultural Resources, Ashley Randall, and they were just doing a trip down the Connecticut to talk about the importance of the river and conservation and whatnot. So I was able to welcome all of those folks to Hatfield, and that was very, very nice to do. So just wanted to let people know about that. Ed, did you have any announcements?
No, well, last week I went to the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and at that meeting we did talk about climate change, which we talked about somewhat last night. And one interesting fact that was brought up at that meeting was when we've been talking about COVID-19 and the effects to the area, one interesting statistic was the Hatfield unemployment went from 2.7, it's now at like 15.6 or 15.7. Wow. So I just wanted to show that there is an effect with COVID-19 and unemployment in just our town, not.
Wow, I did not know that.
25% or,
right.
or 26%. So there's a lot of effects happening. That's all. Just wanted to share that.
That's an alarming statistic. Mm-hmm. Just going back to the meeting last night, one of the things that came up that to me just sort of added a little bit of urgency to what we were talking about was sort of the statement that when it comes to, the increasing of storms, the likelihood of flooding and all of those types of things, that the farmers would feel it first.
Yes.
And that was, something that, really just stuck in my mind. And I thought about how important it is and how important this work is that we're doing. So,
I want to point out at PVPC, they mentioned in the next 80 years, we'll probably increase another 72 days of over 90-degree weather to the calendar.
Wow, that's different than the statistic they gave us last night.
Unless things change.
Yeah, there was an increase, but not quite as substantial in what they were predicting last night. But Yeah.
And just to add to what you said, Diana, is that's why it was very important to have our local farmers
Yeah,
participate.
That's right,
in
we
this
did. We
workshop,
did have,
so.
But was
Daryl
happy
was
to
there.
hear that some of the local farmers are actually working towards that, like with no-till
They are.
Right.
and some other stuff that they're starting to do to maintain from erosion and all that. So the farmers are aware of that, and that's good news that everybody's working.
Yeah, being proactive. So it was interesting. It was very interesting. So that was all I had. Brian, did you want to add anything?
No, well, other than thanking you, Madam Chair, for representing Hatfield yesterday, the Connecticut River
Tour?
Thank you. I was trying to find out exactly how they had positioned that, but there was an article in the paper, and I know Senator Comerford and Representative Sabadosa and many others, and I think the secretary
Yep.
from the state, who I think we met at the Christmas tree
Yeah,
farm.
she was
Did
at
we
the
not?
Christmas
Yeah, I
tree
thought
farm,
so.
yeah.
So thank you for representing the board at that function.
Yeah, it was actually a great day. So I had joined them at a few different stops, wearing my other hat and then wearing my Hatfield hat. So I did not kayak. The water's cold.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't do that. But actually, Brian, you reminded me. Oh, we should probably, just a thank you to the 350th committee and the folks that put on the concert, the drive-in concert. It was really, really nice. It felt like a nice night out. It was beautiful weather. John was there. Thank you, doing all kinds of, you were like broadcast, you recorded it, right?
I was the one who put the picture on the big screen.
Put the picture, and we did. There was a big jumbo screen where you could watch the band, and a lot of people there, and it was very safe. Everybody was in their own parking spot, but it was really, really nice. So it was kind of fun to have a little 350th event in the midst of all of this. So Bobby Betzold and Anna Holhut really did a lot of work to get ready for that. So I want to just personally thank them for that. Anything else for announcements? Okay.
I think the only thing I would say, and I don't have all the particulars, is I've seen signs around town, and they haven't asked me to do this, but the schools are, or the PTA, hosting a spectacular
Yes.
Event the end of the month for Halloween. So again, I saw the signs. We weren't asked to speak to it tonight officially, but I'm sure if anybody has any questions, they'll see the signs or call the school and get an update.
Right, I think
should
the
you need it.
Hatfield PTA has a website
Yeah.
as well, so you could check that out if you wanted information. I know a little bit about it because I've been asked to see if I can find some zombies and ghosts for it, so I'm working on that. But yeah, sounds like a little something for
Yeah,
kids to enjoy
absolutely.
safely. Lydia, you mentioned you had some announcements. You want to come up to the mic?
I just wanted to encourage people to come to early voting. I know there are some people out there that really like to vote on Election Day. Diane, I think you're one.
I am. I love Election
You're one
Day.
of them.
I'm coming on Election Day.
You have every right to come on Election Day, and anybody has every right. I just want to advise people that due to COVID and the requirements of 6 feet apart, less voting booths, with a lot of people coming on Election Day, the lines are going to be long and there is going to be a wait. And people in Hatfield are not used to waiting in a long line on Election Day. So I just want people to understand that due to COVID and the restrictions that we're under, on Election Day, be prepared to wait in line. And encourage people, to come and early vote. And it's published on the website. There's copies of the schedule at both post offices. You can pick one up, stick it on your refrigerator, and have all the dates. Our nighttime voting is Saturday night, 6 to 8, great date night. Go out to dinner and come and vote. The other thing I wanted to announce that I was able to secure a $5,000 grant for elections, not to supplement my budget. It specifically says that in the grant. It's for additional things
Right.
to use for elections, for safety, for education, and a multitude of things. So I was pretty happy with that. And that's it.
Great, so, will that be that you can apply towards things for this election? Because it's kind of,
From anything from June 15th to the end of the year, December 31st.
okay.
So, and I should have it actually
You want
in the bank by the end of the week, first part of next week.
Oh.
I already ordered a new Dropbox.
Oh, good.
Because that one,
A larger one?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
You know, when they got it, they were just thinking
didn't
about
know.
the small envelopes and payments. No one,
Didn't know.
I wasn't part of the discussion, so I didn't say
Nope.
ballots.
Now we know.
You
Yeah.
know, and it really wasn't part of our thinking back then.
Right.
So it's very similar, but just bigger, same post, so it should go in and out. I already talked to Garrett. I said, as soon as that thing comes in next week, I would really like it in. So he would say, just call me, we'll take care of it.
Right.
So.
That's great. Well, thank you to Garrett. And early voting has started.
Early voting has started.
How did it go?
It's been going very well. We're getting between 35 and 50 ballots voted a day.
Wow.
The only thing is, we are getting people, they have the right to do this. If you get a mail-in ballot and you decide you want to vote in person, you can do that. Although people are finding that when they come for early voting, it's really very similar. You're filling out the same ballot, the same brown envelope, and you're depositing it into, not the tabulator, you're just depositing into a secure box, which you're doing exactly the same thing if you fill it out at home and drop it in the drop box.
So they're bringing their mail-in ballot here to fill it out?
No, they're leaving it at home, and they decided to vote in person. So there's $1.30 worth of postage that's gone out, and they're allowed to do this. You know, they can change their mind, it's perfectly legal, and the system is all set up for this, but that's, you know,
Then
that's,
if they tried to also mail it back in, it wouldn't be accepted?
no, no,
Okay.
there's too many fail-safes.
Okay.
I have been racking my brain trying to figure out how anyone would vote twice in Massachusetts, and I know all the procedures we're doing, and I'm like, how could you possibly do this? You know, I'm trying to play devil's advocate
Well,
and
so
really
this is
figure-
all new, and, you know, maybe if we still need to be doing it this way, you know, we
Right.
should
And it
mention to
is.
people that it
It-
is an added expense for the town, so if you're intending to come in and do it anyway, maybe don't request it.
Right, or.
Time and money.
Right, yeah. Or just fill it out and then
Bring it
drop
with
it
you.
off.
Right.
You can drop it off at the early voting. They have a
Right.
box,
Right.
kind of like a satellite of the Dropbox, where they put the ballots that people have already filled out.
Okay.
And it's helpful because we have a barcode on there, and we can scan those in as opposed to manually. you
Gotcha.
know, put-
Lydia, the voting options are listed on the town's website, correct?
Yes, I mean, I've got all the early voting times and
Yep.
dates and everything right on the website under the town clerk. And I think it might not be right on the front page anymore, because as people add
Adding
news,
drops down,
it gets buried, so you just have to check all, and then you can see where the, and like I said, they're at the post offices too, so if you're going to the post office, just, you can grab and everyone got a copy in their water bill. Thank you very much to the selectmen for
You're welcome.
authorizing that, so, you know.
Yeah, you and I had talked about it, and it was just, yeah, it was too bad that people, they requested the ballot,
Right,
you
yeah.
to mail in,
Yeah.
mail back,
Yeah.
and then they
Yeah.
changed their mind, and yeah, it's
And
the postage.
and I get
that's-
it. They'll say, oh, I feel more comfortable doing it in person. But I had one voter that said, well, I was very disappointed. She goes, it's the same thing as voting the mail-in ballot.
Well,
You know,
of
'cause
course
they
it's going to
think-
be the same thing.
Well, they think they're going to be able to put it into the tabulator, which the town clerks have been advocating for this for a long time, is with this early voting, to be able to actually put it in the tabulator.
Right.
Lock the tabulator up at night, bring it out for the next day of early voting, let them put it right in. But the closest we could come to that, they made a concession we can do what's called advance removal and deposit. So on Friday, the 30th, is going to be a day which is going to look, if anybody wants to see it, it's going to kind of look like an election. The workers will come in with a pile of ballots. They'll be checked off in a book. They'll be given to other workers that will have them upside down. They're slit, the ballots open, put in a pile, and then those, once everything's open, then those are all inserted into the tabulator. That tabulator gets locked up until the night of election, and you cannot run the tape until after 8 o'clock on the night of the election.
Okay, so then the tape you run right after the election will be pretty close to our final results.
Well, I got to add the two together. We have two tabulators.
Right.
There's another good deal we got. The state gave us an extra tabulator, which was like, what, $6,700 we paid for the first one? They gave us one for this election. The deal is, if we want to keep it afterwards as a spare, $150. I just submitted the bill schedule.
Yeah.
I'm like, hello, of course.
But I mean, regardless of whether you have to add them or not, we will
Right.
get a number that would be very close. Because you can still accept some ballots.
Yes, we can still accept some ballots.
Postmark.
All the ballots that are received that day and anything postmarked the 3rd up until 5 o'clock on the 6th. We count after 5 o'clock on the 6th.
Okay. Okay.
And then your overseas ballots, you got until the 13th, I think.
Okay.
So my election isn't over until the 18th when I submit my report to the
Right.
Secretary of
Right.
State.
Just in time for Thanksgiving, Lydia.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for the update, and I know this is a different year. I'm sure I speak for my colleagues. It's such a different year for election officials, obviously, throughout the country. But we're concerned about the ones here in Hatfield. So
Right.
thank
Yeah.
you, and for all the election workers that are assisting you.
Louise is down in
doing this.
Florida going,
Yeah, I know, right?
So thank you very much.
Well, and thank you to residents who are taking advantage of
Yes,
the various
yes.
opportunities they have to do things
yeah,
differently this
we-
year.
We've sent out probably, the last count I remember is 1,158, plus we had 50-something absentee ballots, and we've sent out more than that, so we've got to be up over 1,200, 1,250
Wow.
in mail-in ballots that have gone out.
And how's the rate of return?
That I haven't counted up yet. I'm going to do that hopefully either tomorrow, because unfortunately, there's no report that will they'll give me that tells me exactly what came back, except the Secretary of State's office has been sending something once in a while. But I myself can't do it without physically counting. So that's a lot of counting.
So how many voters in town?
About 2,700.
2,700, okay.
But then, there's probably 100 that aren't really still there and
Right.
aren't really going to vote. And so all those figures are a snapshot in time, and
Yep.
the next day
Changes. Yep.
they're outdated.
All right, great, thank you,
Okay.
Lydia. Yep,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah, Madam Chair, I did have one more thing under announcements for the general public. So it's board and committee vacancies. And just to let, if anybody's interested in the following town committees, there are vacancies. And you would just need to complete an application under volunteers on the home page of the town website. So these are the 5 committees that currently have openings. So there's the Conservation Committee, the Elderly and Disabled Taxation Fund Committee, Hatfield Human Resources Advisory Committee, Open Space Committee, and the Recreation Committee. So those committees are looking for additional folks to help round out the number of members on each of them. And once again, if you look to the website under volunteers, or you can send an email to the town administrator at townofhatfield.org. And Marlene can help you out or guide you or perhaps answer any questions you may have.
And while they're all, very important, we want to get all these vacancies filled. The Conservation Commission one is one I'm hoping we can really find somebody for very soon, as well as Recreation, because I know they're trying to put together opportunities for kids during this time, and I'm sure they could use a full slate of committee members. Okay, posted business, first in line, COVID update. We have our COVID coordinator, Carrie, Gahn, with us. Welcome, Carrie. Excuse me, Carrie Flaherty.
Just kidding.
Listen, you know how I am. I call Steve Stevie, the whole 9 yards, sorry.
Yep, exactly. Well, first we'll start with that we have no cases. The one case we did have that came out that I announced last week was really already a week old, so that person's already off of quarantine and is doing well, actually. So we're back to everybody's off quarantine and we have no new cases.
Excellent.
I have a couple things to talk about. I took a complaint today in regards to a business that I have to follow up on, just so you guys all are aware in case anybody calls you, that this individual, I don't know why I contacted Northampton, but Northampton reached out to me and gave me the complaint, and is advised that not only are there workers there working without masks, but they're allowing people into their business regularly without masks. So I'm gonna follow up on that tomorrow. In case somebody reaches out to you guys, just know that I'm not gonna obviously name the business, but you
Right.
guys will know what I'm talking about if the complaint comes.
Under investigation.
And I think the chief has sent out emails in regards to this to at least I know Marlene and Brian, but I don't know if the rest of you have been involved in regards to the bills and the CARES money and stuff like that. We received another bill tonight for $26,000. And yeah, and now.
From another department.
For another department. And it's something for you guys to all be realizing and thinking about at this point is that if that bill is to get paid, then that means the COVID position is not going to be able to get paid through the rest of this fiscal year. So we're cutting our CARES Act money very, very, very tight at this point. There was about, give or take with all bills that had been accounted for, about $41,000 that was left that was going to take care of the 20 hours a week of the COVID position that you guys had made. And obviously in the last few weeks, it's actually been more than 20 hours a week.
More than 20 hours
For a while.
for months.
It has been, and it's
And a
not,
lot more than 20 hours.
right, and it's not
Yeah.
that it's not needed. And I've said that obviously multiple times in conversations with you guys, but it's becoming, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon, it's becoming a full-time deal. And it's just, I know we're coming into budget season and all that stuff, but I just think it's something that you guys need to know about as a whole, and you guys can discuss it whenever you want to. I mean, obviously, I don't need to be a part of that conversation, but the fact that CARES is not going to cover it at this point, if these bills keep coming in the way that.
Well,
the way
who's
that they-
authorized? I mean, these bills have to be authorized, no?
Yes, and then it's been communicated multiple times that there is no more money from CARES to be doing that, but my understanding.
There's some issues with
Correct.
CARES.
But I think at this point, my opinion, and I can tell you that the chief's opinion is that it shouldn't be coming from the two of us, which we are the two that are mainly been dealing with that specifically. And at this point, it needs to be coming, I think, from a directive from Marlene and you guys completely versus it being us involved in anymore, because we clearly aren't department heads enough to be able to be really enforcing it.
Could I just add something? So the school, I have had communications with the school. They have received the list of expenditures that are eligible. And again, it has to be COVID-19 related.
Correct. So we have some issues with some
And if a
submissions.
And so, we can, and we have the right, the chief and I have the right to scrutinize or question, and I will be glad to follow up with the department head. However, if it is submitted, it may not be approved. Therefore, you have to be responsible for covering that out of your operation budget.
So,
Some of these bills have been paid. That's the problem, is that the
Well,
bill
the
went through, the
invoices-
warrant went through,
right.
it's gone through the process, and I guess, and I know it can get changed, I get that it can get moved around account-wise later, I totally get that, but I did have a conversation today with Riley in regards to this, because she had called me about something different, and she's never been advised that she's not supposed to put bills through to CARES anymore.
So-
And that's a big deal, because we keep getting these receipts, and I can tell you, he's not here to speak to it, but the chief is getting very frustrated, because he really is the one that has taken on and been really responsible with this and super detailed with it. And we've had this conversation for weeks now, and Brian can,
he just popped on here.
Because
did
he's
he? Okay.
received, yeah, the chief is receiving copies of those invoices, and departments were instructed to send a copy to him.
Yes,
So Carrie, just for my colleagues who, and well, for all of us, but mostly for the people at home, or Marlene, you can answer this too. So the town of Hatfield was granted through the CARES Act approximately $289,000, so let's call it $290,000. So what we're saying, what Carrie just said, is right now we've spent or has been allocated basically $250,000. Is that roughly? Or Bob?
he's on here now, so I would rather him adjust, I think, not counting the bill we just found out about today, we're at $215,000.
215, 215?
Correct, without
Okay.
today's current bill.
Which I
If
haven't-
today's current bill goes in, then that is
Okay,
obviously.
so here's the deal, right? So we've been doing, again, we call it the COVID committee, but Chief Flaherty and Marlene have been kind of overseeing the expenditure part of it, or let me rephrase that, the billing part of it. But it seems like the schools, either, Riley might not be aware, but I thought it was made perfectly clear early on that we are here to help because that's what we do, right? We're a community, we're all in this together. But having said that, it's not a blank checkbook. I mean, we've got more departments than just the school department, which is well over $140,000 at this point. Well over, without going through all the billing. So, I mean, there's new age.
We're talking about a hybrid program.
There's
We're not talking about full in-person
Right.
schooling right now.
That's what I'm saying, for the hybrid program. And we've got HVAC systems that have been updated, we've got repairs like the people wouldn't believe. And again, that's okay. We're here to assist, and we're here to help where we can. But they've got to be COVID-related expenses. We're not taking care of years of maintenance that maybe was never an issue, but now it is. That's not on us from a COVID perspective. That's part of your operations budget. That's part of the school budget, your $5.5 million school budget that you get every year. So we cannot continue to get these bills. We have got to keep a COVID coordinator, whoever it is. And I'm not saying that because you're sitting there, Carrie.
I understand.
And it is more than the 20 hours per week. I mean, this thing morphed, right? Nobody knew when we started this. And I know we keep saying it, and the schools didn't know either.
And they don't know, and that's
But-
not their
but-
fault either, you're right.
But we all need to get together. And when I say we all, I'm talking about COVID, and maybe get with administration again and explain, just because you say you need it, just because you think it's COVID, and just because you go and do it, to Marlene's point, doesn't mean it's going to be covered under COVID.
that's right.
There are strict guidelines as to what is and isn't available expenses to be paid.
Right.
And we do not want to have an audit where something, whatever, pops up, and then now the government's drilling down on every single little purchase, whether it was $10 or it was $50,000.
Well,
We
not
don't want
only that, but
Already did
we
happen.
can't,
We thought FEMA, I don't ever get the right letters correctly, but, and again, the chief can correct me on this, but if I'm correct in numbers, we thought that they were going to cover much more of 75% than they did. And I think in the end, when he took that whole list of everything that we purchased and he sent it off to them to see what they're going to cover first and then go to the CARES part, they covered like $24,000 or $25,000. I'm probably off maybe by a couple thousand, but it gives people the general idea, and that's it. So that's $25,000 out of $215,000, or even maybe a little bit more than that if you take in some of the actual town receipts on top of that. that's not a lot of money that we thought was going to get taken care of. And one of their comments is that this was supposed to be an emergency situation
Right,
coverage,
not regular
not a
maintenance.
restarting
Right.
the wheel or doing a new, in the end, it ends up being a new school year, whatever. And so maybe some things got purchased that we thought, like, I know some things got purchased that we thought was going to get covered, but when it comes to, and we've seen it, when it comes to the HVAC system, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that maintenance-wise wasn't done. And those are just general bills. That's not COVID related. It's not the stuff that needed to be updated specific to making it work the way that, as we know, the MTA has made question of what should be running in a school building.
I would also stress that this money, and Bob, Chief Flaherty, correct me if I'm wrong, this money is earmarked to go through June of 2021, right? So it's supposed to last us. I mean,
right now
we've heard rumors.
We've heard rumors, but
December
that has not
30th.
come through. It's December 31st.
December
so-
31st.
So without new CARES funding, we're done.
That's right.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, it'd be nice to have a little
hinted
something. Yeah.
that we might get to carry it through the end of the fiscal year. I've also heard rumor, but it really hasn't come out through DLS and stuff like that specifically, that there might be another possible round of monies that could come to certain towns, because a lot of towns haven't even taken their CARES money, and I mean, you've seen the same statements I have. So maybe there might be some more coming, but either way, COVID's not going anywhere anytime soon, and my feeling is we as a town have a responsibility to our residents to make sure that everything is being taken care of. And again, it doesn't have to be me doing that. It can be somebody else if that needs to be. But either way, it's becoming a full-time job, and I mean, I'm going to continue doing it. I'm not saying I'm not, but I'm doing like 80 hours of work a week on top
Easy.
of homeschooling.
Easy.
Because I'm doing my own current job plus this, which I'm happy to be doing, and homeschooling at the same time.
I want to just reiterate once again, none of us in this room or in the town, I would imagine, have any problem helping to support the schools.
Absolutely not.
But what I will say is we also have other departments and other organizations in town that we do need to support. And if you watch the news or hear the news or read the newspaper, you'll see that many cities and towns, their schools are saying they will be struggling financially because their cities and towns aren't in a position to give them CARES money like we are. So did you ever find out from the superintendent or anybody else, did any of us ever find out, is there DESE money, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education? Is there DESE money or money from the school side that they either can, I know they got some.
Some, right.
Can they apply for more? Do we know any of that? Can we follow up with them and say, what's the
I don't
deal?
know if the superintendent received
So-
a response yet, but he did say that he was going to be contacting
Well,
them.
I mean, you
to
know,
see if
I would
he-
imagine schools are similar to towns in the fact that we've got this pile of money,
He was gonna
hopefully,
see
that
if he-
districts can tap into.
If he could still apply.
Okay.
So the bottom line is, I feel like we need to have a financial meeting
Yep.
with the school to do a couple of things. I want to go through the expenditures that have been submitted so that we can make sure that we're only covering COVID-related expenses with the CARES Act money. And if there's anything that needs to be kicked back to the school budget, then that's going to have to happen. But it also will allow us to talk moving forward, some projections with the expenses that, I mean, because from what I understand, we purchased more than ample PPE and cleaning supplies, even though an email went out to parents asking for donations for that stuff, which I'm not sure why that happened, because we really
Yes.
more than covered what they're going to need. I know that was retracted. But, you know, so I want to make sure that we have them in a good place, right? Where that they're safe right now, but also moving forward. But we have to take a look at that CARES Act money. I want to find out if there's other funding that they're going to get. We can discuss that at some point. Now, I don't care who does it. I'm the school liaison for the board, but Brian is the COVID person. So I don't care which one of us it is, but somebody needs to sit down, maybe with Carrie, Bob, and administration to review all those expenses.
And on top of that, Madam Chair, the other thing that I've said, and we talked about it this week and last, I'm not sure we made it official yet, but we'd like the schools, and any other department, but the schools in particular, because they've utilized the most funding, we'd like them to tell us what they're not going to use, so we can return it and get
Yes,
the money
well,
back.
and that was going to be that's part of what I meant going through item by item.
Absolutely. I mean, we bought cameras for every classroom so that the teacher could be in the classroom and the students would remote learn. And I don't think hardly more than a handful of those are being used.
That
Yeah.
my understanding is there's not even I don't think there's a dozen teachers using them.
Right.
And
So,
that's about $10,000 worth of cameras.
Yeah, so we need to get a handle on this because, you're absolutely the school, when it comes to safety and
Oh, yeah.
COVID-related expenses are our top priority. But
Absolutely.
we do have other departments, and I want to make sure that we're spending this money
Fairly.
well, and
Fairly and
within the
equitably.
guidelines of what it's
Yes,
issued
right.
for. And I don't want
honest, it was
to
very
spend it
hard for
on
me
things
to
that are
bring-
sitting in some closets that aren't being used.
Right, and it was hard for me to bring this up tonight because I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not trying to be picky, it's just, my opinion and my job is to make sure we're taking care of the whole town.
Right.
And at this point, it scares me to realize that we got this allotted money and we may not have enough to last our whole town through.
That's a good share
It's
of
a
money.
big, large chunk of money, and $200,000, give or take, is a lot of money extra, and rightly so. But on the flip side, if stuff's not being used and we're not doing things the way that we expected it to be done when we approved purchases,
Right.
then it has to be reevaluated,
And we also need to make sure that everybody over at the school department understands what can and can't be submitted.
right.
Ed,
May I
I'm
add one
sorry,
thing?
yeah, I was going to ask
I
if
would,
you,
I would add one thing to that. I'd say immediately tell them to stop purchasing anything until you have that meeting
Right.
and find out exactly what's going on. No purchases, and we're not going to spend any money until your guys are able to sit down and hash it out and find exactly where everything's at.
agreed.
yeah, you're right, and that should happen, that meeting should happen right away. So I don't care which one of, who does it. But I definitely want Bob there. And
Why don't I reach out to Marty tomorrow
If you
morning
would,
and
please, that would be great. I can make
schedule
myself,
something
or
for
I don't know what
our-
Diane,
do you want to do it?
I'm fine doing it,
That's fine.
if, you know.
I'll set something.
Well, why
up.
don't we can, or we can pick the date that's agreeable to Marty, Carrie, and Bob, and then see what, and Marlene, and
who it
then which
works
one
for.
of us can sneak out of work and attend.
Yep.
Yep. Hey, it's just important that we're all on the same wavelength. That's all this is about.
Right.
The whole
Right.
thing is just, the whole thing, COVID, has just taken on a life of its own, and none of us
And we
have
have,
known
right, we also have, we have other vulnerable employees
Cor-
to look out for, right?
Yes.
In our emergency services and,
Yeah.
so,
Yep.
okay.
Was there-
So we'll get that set up.
Yeah.
I think that was.
Thank you, Carrie, for the update.
For me, I don't know if Bob has anything to add, but I know he was sitting there and listening.
Yeah,
but-
Chief, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think we got most of it covered. The school's rough guesstimate minus the 2 invoices that I just got in the last 2 days. School-wise, they're at about 215 to 218.
Wow.
Wow.
16 or so that we had already done in FY20, and I don't have all the salary stuff where we can pull up the COVID salary.
Yeah, that's
any
not
other
much.
expenses.
Yeah.
I would be hedging to guess, I don't have my paperwork in front of me because it's in my office. I hedge to guess that if everything goes through, we're sitting at probably only about $12,000 to $15,000 or less left of CARES money.
Wow. Okay. But I'm under the impression that there have been some things submitted that really don't qualify for CARES Act money, so we should be in a little bit better shape.
There will definitely be some things kicked back. I know that the HVAC vendor was in town again twice last week and once already this week. I would suspect that bill is going to get pushed through or try to get pushed through. And ultimately that wasn't necessarily a COVID, it was a complaint from the staff at the schools that they wanted it looked at. They felt that it was too cold in the building, so they didn't think that the airflow was moving correctly. So they called Cody to come in and check and make sure that it was working. So my guess is that that will try to come through as a
I thought that there were requests to have it,
There was,
to specifically have fresh air
which makes the building
circulated through the
colder
building.
and-
So these details, getting in the weeds on this is for that other discussion. But,
But I will say there needs to be probably an immediate discussion or an email tomorrow from either board or from Marlene, whether it goes to all department heads, that there can be no more expenses put to.
that's a good point. It should go to all department heads,
Yeah.
not just the school. It should go to all.
Go to everybody.
And they all need to be, there should be pre-approval for these things. I mean,
There was really good email and guidelines set way back when we got the
Yeah.
CARES. It was specific on how the process was supposed to happen. And in fairness, some stuff was said, yes, these things can be purchased, but some things
Right.
specific to today's bill was definitely said no, because that was brought up in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm not sure where it came from or how it came through. And I
haven't
question,
seen it
I
yet.
mean, Bob and I, we were gonna deal with it tomorrow because we were like, couldn't believe it.
okay, so we talked at the last meeting about having school administration come
yes.
to talk because of, letting some other community members know, maybe outside of people who are associated with the schools at this point, about some of what's happening. And this also providing, at that time, a listing of what we have spent CARES Act money on at the schools to, improve the safety in the building and make sure that there's adequate PPE and cleaning supplies and all of that. I think that's really important for community members to know. So,
It is.
because it is something we've been really committed to, and it is something we take very seriously. So I want people to understand what the town has provided in CARES Act money for this and what it went for. But I do want to go through it with a fine tooth comb.
Right,
Yep.
So, as we do with all of our monies,
right.
Right.
right? So, okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. So I am available Friday, but if you, whatever.
But I would say, Madam Chair, I think, Marlene, if you wouldn't mind sending that email to the department heads tomorrow.
Doesn't matter to
Oh,
me
yeah,
which
I'll
one of
do
us
that
it is.
as well.
Yeah, but I mean the email to the department heads,
Oh,
saying
yeah.
like as effective immediately, timeout on CARES request. Like, I mean, you can still make the request, but it's got to come through, the COVID committee to make sure it's approved.
That's right.
It's
And,
not, it's not that
right.
you're not going to be able to get it, but I mean, we need to know.
Going forward, I mean, if there is additional CARES Act money that's allocated or whatever, that just has to be,
Well, and my other concern is that if we really are, for whatever reason, getting close to the end of what we have for CARES Act money, I felt it was important that you guys, along with our finance committee, need to know that if you plan on keeping a COVID coordinator in, it's something that obviously the monies were allocated through CARES specifically when you guys had voted in this position, and that's where it was going to get paid from. And if it's something that we as a town need to keep on,
it's part of a larger
budget-wise, it has to be
discussion.
looked at
In my
too.
opinion, it's part of a larger discussion with having a health agent or something like that. This isn't going away anytime soon. And really, there's been a good argument to have some type of public health agent anyway. So that's part of a whole larger discussion.
Yep.
But again, maybe after we get to the bottom of the expenditures that are coming through the school department or whatever department gave you that bill today that you weren't expecting. It's the school department. Then once we get to the bottom of all of that, then there should probably be a COVID financial meeting where we discuss all of this with the whole team.
Yep.
Okay.
other than that, I have nothing.
Including the school, I mean, and the school should have a seat at that table as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. The school, and just in regards to that, just so that people know, the nurses and I speak daily now, and it really needs to happen that way because we have to do a lot of follow-up with kids that are not coming to school for whatever the reason being of their illness. It has to be, I mean, lots of questions have to be asked to the parents. We have to make sure that they get seen by the doctor depending on what's going on. It's a lot of true contact tracing, even though it's not 100% COVID. We still have to rule out that these children or their family members don't have it. So it's a daily thing. I mean, I probably get 3 to 5 emails a day from the school in regards to students or staff that aren't coming in because of X, Y, or Z. So it is a
Symptoms of
process.
some
Yeah,
sort.
exactly. So it's not anything that like, it's not overuse of anything, it's just, it needs to be dealt with.
Right.
And in all honesty, it's a process that has to happen,
And people need to remember too, that the duties around the COVID coordinator aren't just the school. You mentioned a business.
Right.
Right, and then you have the weekly calculations when
Right.
all of the metrics
and the
come out.
metrics and all that kind of stuff. And
all of
then
that.
even restaurants and stuff, I mean, I know sadly, we are down to one restaurant that is open and functioning and able to function, but that's all kinds of things that I've had to be following and watching and stuff like that. And again, we talked about this 2 weeks ago or whatever. I mean, as much as I wish we could open up every restaurant. We clearly can't right now, and it's not going to change anytime soon. And that's the sad part, because these people, they're losing their businesses, and it's,
Agreed.
I mean, Ed talked about the unemployment part of it, but these people are trying to run businesses, and the bars are trying to run a business and stuff like that, and we can't let them
Right.
open.
Right,
And it's not, I can tell you, it is not because I don't want them to be. I want them to be. I know people enjoy going and spending time together and just having a nice time or whatever. And it's sad to see that this is what's happened to all these towns. It's not just us, it's everywhere.
whether it's the bars, the restaurants, whatever, they're part of the fabric of this town, and it's really, it's very concerning to us, sort of what they're up against, and we did, make a vote last week to do what we could, something that we could do to help them financially, in terms of liquor license fees and
my
that sort of
understanding
thing.
is I thought the Board of Health meeting was today, it was my mistake, it's next week, but I believe it's on their agenda to discuss that too, is to hopefully they will, and I'm sure they will, waive the fees for next year for food licensing too.
Right.
Which I totally support and think that's a great idea. And I'm grateful that you guys did the licenses for the liquor licenses. It's a huge help. It's
Yeah.
a little help, but a bigger help overall for next year when people can
Hopefully,
hopefully start to function.
yeah, I mean, we want them to survive.
Right.
I'd like, again, thank you for all you do and the COVID team for what you guys do, because it's a
thanks.
lot of work, a lot of time and a lot of effort spent.
It is,
on-
I mean,
lot of people.
Carrie's communicating with me very often. I'm sure she's, communicating with you guys, and, so it's a lot more time, I think, than people
If you feel
realize.
left out, I'd be happy to call and talk to you on the phone. But I figured you don't mind having an update here or by email. But if you want a phone call, I can talk to you once a week too, because I talk to Diane and Brian and
I guess-
Marlene at least a couple times.
I guess it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a COVID team to protect the town.
It does. It sure does. And Carrie is doing a really good job. This is constantly changing and morphing, and she's rolling with it.
Yep.
So, and keeping us informed and keeping us safe. I truly believe that. So thank you very much.
I'm good.
You're
I don't
good.
have anything else unless you guys have questions for me.
No, thank you.
I think I'll send you guys an email in regards to that complaint once I.
I have heard people, I will just ask one thing.
Sure.
People are still a little concerned about where they can get tested, what the process is. What's your best advice for somebody who, for whatever reason, feels they need to be tested?
So currently, my understanding, the best place to get tested is at HCC. They have a
Hoyle
great
Community.
system going there that I have not heard one person complain about, actually. Not that I've heard anybody complain about any of the places they've been tested, but the process is smooth, it works well, it's kind of, Hadley Med Express, I think is the right name. I've heard good things about them, and they take children too. Some of these places don't take kids under 18, which makes it difficult if you possibly have an exposure or you think, pediatricians for sure, we've found this with the school specifically, the minute a parent calls and says, my child has X, Y, or Z, no matter what it is, they're mainly testing all of these children unless they really are far off the path of what would be possible of COVID.
Right.
Which is great for the schools because these kids are getting tested, staff are able to get tested if they need to, and they can come back, because if they weren't truthfully exposed to an actual COVID case, but they might have symptoms that fall on the list and then they get tested and they're negative, the child or the staff can come back to work. They don't have to stay out in quarantine. It's really only if they were exposed to a positive case that then we really have to follow more detail of making sure that they're out long enough that the 5 days of prep from exposure to when you really would show symptoms, and then you should get tested, so it really does turn out to be that 10 to 14 day window. But I would suggest if people really are looking for a place, Hoyle Community College is definitely the go-to.
Do you just go? You don't need an appointment?
Honestly, I don't 100% know all the details. That's one avenue that I truthfully have not researched enough. But Bay State has their own facilities at all the hospitals. Cooley Dickinson has.
Anyone UMass affiliated can go over to the Mullins Center.
UMass affiliated, you can go on campus over there. So, I mean, there are a lot of locations. If you go to the MassGov website and you look up COVID specifically, you're able to actually search for locations to get tested, and it will break down not only locations, but insurance, no insurance, ages, do you need an appointment or don't you need an appointment, can you just show up kind of thing. And so it gives people details, and you can do it by your zip code, and it'll tell you all the places around you. So it is a good place to go look if you have internet access.
Yep.
And
then, flu shots is another thing that, we should be encouraging people to get
Yes.
flu shots. Well, we should have thanked Jerry and the Council on
Oh, yeah,
Aging.
the Council on Aging just did a great.
They did a really
clinic,
great
yep.
flu clinic,
And they
which
had a
was.
line this
They
year,
did have
which was great.
Yeah, they did, and they had to move everything, of course, over to the church, but
Yep.
it worked really smoothly. Shots were available to town employees, so I did go get my flu shot
The
there.
school
55
just did a flu
people.
clinic the other day.
55?
55
Yeah.
people turned out.
Which is the most we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've done a flu clinic every year for the last 6 years, and we've never had 55 people show up.
Yeah, that's really
That's
great.
in a day. I mean, we've had it over a few days, but for one day, that's great.
Yeah, so thank you to Jerry and the Council on Aging for doing that.
Some people don't agree in flu shots, and that's a debate that I won't get into with people, but in this time now, even the people, I really push the fact that people should be getting the flu shot to take the less risk off of yourself. Like, to not have a flu shot and we don't have a vaccine for COVID right now is a big deal.
So one other thing that I learned last week that was alarming to me was that only 40% of families sending their kids into the schools on hybrid days are doing the child symptom report in the morning. So there's a link that the school has sent out. It's super easy. It takes 2 seconds. You put your kid's name, your kid's grade, and you take their temperature, and you just check off that they don't have any of the symptoms, and there's a whole list there of the symptoms that you'd want to be concerned about. We do it for Hadley every Monday and Tuesday morning. It's only a matter of, it's literally seconds to get it done. And I was just so surprised to hear that only 40% of families are doing that. I mean, that seems like something that you would want to do to, first of all, make sure your kid doesn't have a fever, to keep the staff and the other students, and everybody else in the schools that work there safe, and really to reassure people that you're paying attention to this. So
And the school has done a good job in pointing out that this needs to be done. It's not that they have,
It
they
is.
100% have done their due diligence. It's
It's-
on their website, it's on our parent page, on the
the
Facebook
link
page,
is
it's
in
everywhere.
all kinds of, every
Right.
email you get,
It's
I mean,
simple.
I
People
just
should be
saved it
doing
as a
There's no
favorite,
excuse not
so,
to.
I saved it as a favorite. We just
Yep.
go in, it takes seconds, so.
All right, I can't help myself. So what about the 60% that aren't doing it?
And that's the
Do
problem.
they show up and there's a nurse sitting there?
That's my-
No, so this is what was discussed last week is that the parents are not doing what they're supposed to. 60% of our parents are not doing what they're supposed to, and that is a large number.
There
ridiculous.
should
When
be
we're
some-
trying to keep our teachers safe, I mean, our teachers 100% have the right concern, and I get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just adds to their fears of knowing that there's 60% of parents that are just dropping their kids off at the door and they're not doing the checklist.
It literally is so easy, and they have made, the form that they have put out is so easy to fill out. In fact, it actually, I noticed today when I did it, it's updated, it's even easier.
Yes.
And I don't understand not doing it for the peace of mind of the staff and everything in the building. And even for your own peace of mind, right? That,
For sure.
I mean, so I would encourage anybody who's, I know there needs to be discussion about how
Well-
you increase that number and if there's repercussions if you're not doing that reporting.
Well, far be it from me, because I'm not on the school committee and I'm not an administrator. But if I were, I think what I would say is, we don't get the form, or you don't hand it to us if you print it out, we don't have it electronically, your child is not welcome into the school building. That's how you set the point. That's how you set the directive to the parents. It's not the kid's fault. This is the parents' or the guardian's fault. And that rate is horrible, 40%. I mean, if you
I
said
was
80,
shocked.
if you
I
said
was literally
80%, you'd
shocked.
say,
I thought
okay,
it was
you know.
mandatory.
Well, that's what I mean. Is it mandatory or not?
Well, it's supposed to be.
Well, obviously it's not, right? Because
And I-
only
and I totally
40% are
get
doing it.
that. I understand that, but drop-off is a challenge, and
Yeah, I saw the line to pick their kids up today
yeah,
out
it's
to
a drop-off and
Bardwell's.
pickup is a challenge, definitely at the elementary school. I mean, it's as smooth of a process as we possibly can have, but we all sit there in the morning waiting in line to drop our kids off. I don't understand why people can't just click, and if you're putting your kid on the bus, you even have more of a reason to be able to do it in the morning because your kid is riding the bus to school. Before they're even getting
so
there, they're
we-
doing other stops along the way.
And
so-
I know that mornings are hectic, and some people have more than one child, and you're trying to get out the door, and I get that. I mean, Hadley's 16, we keep a thermometer on the kitchen counter. She takes her own temperature, tells me what it is, I do the form. I mean, so it really is seconds. It's not so if anyone is listening who has students in the schools who hasn't been filling that form out,
We really need you to be,
you really need to be doing that form.
absolutely.
Super easy and really important and important for the teachers so that they know that you're taking seriously, that
Right.
you're making sure that you're only sending your healthy child into that school. Well, we got off on a tangent.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. It's 60% of the
I was,
parents'
I mean,
fault.
I felt it was worth mentioning because I was really shocked to learn. And actually, it had been much lower than that.
It had been.
It was
much
down
lower
around
than
like
that.
25, I
Yeah.
think the nurse said, and they had just gotten it up to 40.
Yeah, so the first couple weeks was even worse than recently.
Yeah, and they've really made it clear.
Yep.
Yep, so, okay. If you don't have anything
I
else,
don't
we'll,
have anything else.
you know what, we skipped over the minutes. We do have these July 9th minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 9th, 2020 minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Key, for those. Okay, appointment of election workers. So we have
3.
two.
There are 3.
The stapled one is actually two separate ones, Diane.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I just took me a minute.
So we have applications here from Susan Mormon, Hannah Collins Wolf, and does that say Renee?
Renee.
Renee Greenfield.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept all three of those as you've presented.
Second.
Okay, motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for joining the team. I actually can't wait till I can do that someday. I think it's going to be really fun. Can I? I didn't think you could be an election worker if you held a,
Only if it's your election.
oh. Okay,
That makes sense.
think about it. Okay. Water and sewer abatements. Phil, do these have anything to do with you? Did you want to speak to them, or? Why don't you come up to the mic, Phil, because.
So I've been having a few discussions with Board Member Jaworski about this water and sewer abatements that have come forth. So he was kind enough to look into the water and sewer rules and regulations that are posted and were accepted in 2010, and I provided you a copy with them because the abatement process is pretty clear of what it should be and shouldn't be.
As
And
related.
the only reason I'm saying that is because with the rate increase, we don't want to open up the can of worms here. Because people have been calling, we've been dealing with at least 20 to 25 people that have called. We've called them back, we've explained that the rates went up to 30%. We explained with the COVID, people are
My
home.
bill was still reasonable. I mean, I understand the rates went up, but,
People are home. It was a dry summer,
right.
so people used, the consumption of water was a lot more than it usually was, so. I just want to, there's a few abatements in front of you. It's surely the board's decision. The only one I would comment on is that the one that provided the documentation for the pool liner, figured out how much the cubic feet were. I think that's, that's been past practice to give that abatement. for
That
the
would be on
sewer-
480 Main Street.
For the sewer side.
Yeah.
So the others, did you want to comment on them? I mean,
I just would like to know if the board has any discussion about the others first.
Well, so the request on Primrose Path for the pool, similar to the one you just said, had all the cubic feet and the information and all that. I mean, I think we need a little bit more detail, to be perfectly honest, right? I mean, I have a pool. The liner split a couple years ago. You know, I had the proof, I had the pictures, the proof and everything, and I got basically my one shot, right? To get the new liner, show it empty, and then show it filled, and got the abatement on the sewer side of things. Not water, of course, because I use the water. It was just to prove it didn't go down the sewer. I think that's the process that pool owners need to use in order to, for us to accept or approve, or have you approve, to bring to us an abatement. I think if we don't have that information, I mean, we need the documentation. It's not that we don't believe the people, you know, but, you know, it's all about having the backup information if we give abatements to the reason why, right? I mean, that's how I feel about it. And in reading the process for abatements, that it's pretty much spells it out right in there, what you need to do under Section D.
Right, and when people call for abatements, you know, we refer them to that clause in the water and sewer regulations.
Right.
You know, and some of them just say, well, you know, I'm not gonna qualify for an abatement, and others will submit it, so.
I mean, if you qualify for it, you should submit for it. But if you read this and you don't qualify for it, then good for you, good for them for saying, you know what, I thought I did, but after reading this, I don't. So that's what I would say at this point about the Primrose Path request. I'm actually just kind of reading the other one, the lengthy, about Plain Road.
Correct.
I'm just kind of reading the note from the resident, but do you have any comment on that one? It looks like they had already fixed
They
them.
fixed the service to the house was replaced, but in the meantime, the service that went out to the back barn leaked. And that's why their bill was so high. I mean,
But is that their responsibility?
yes.
It is.
Oh,
yeah, I
On
mean,
their
it's,
property, yeah.
because it's beyond the street
And
to the,
that should be in our water and sewer policies,
It is,
yeah.
yes. Anything beyond the curb stop is your responsibility.
It's unfortunate, it really is.
It is
but, yeah.
unfortunate, but, you know, it's not us to, you know, monitor a meter to see if it's spinning because there's a leak.
That's right.
You know, if someone had called up and say, hey, my meter sounds like it's running, or, you know, it seems like I'm hearing something, we go and check it,
or I'm seeing water,
but, you know,
right,
for us to
Yeah.
try and figure out what happened, I mean, that is really not our responsibility.
yeah, and also the usage chart is really highly variable from year to year on this. So in other words, trying to predict doesn't really help.
You know, and if it jumped, it jumped, but you're not gonna know that until
the bill comes up,
you get your bill.
right?
You know, there's no way that we monitor everybody's meter daily.
It's a good practice for homeowners to check their meter periodically and just to look at it.
Especially with an additional building that
Right,
that they have water
absolutely.
running.
Yeah, and especially knowing that, you know, that the service line failed, then, and I have another service line going out to my barn, I would surely check,
Would have done them both. I mean,
you know.
hindsight's always 20/20, but that probably would have been a wise thing to do at the time, just to.
So
Try to
at this
play it safe.
point, it sounds like you're recommending that we approve the Main Street, deny the Plain Road, and request more information on the Primrose Path?
That's what I would do.
Yeah,
Okay.
that seems fair.
Seems absolutely fair.
I think it'd be appropriate to read the regulation. May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, for swimming pools, this is found online under town governments, under abatements. A property owner shall be entitled to a sewer abatement when it is proven that a swimming pool has been installed or repaired. The abatement will be determined by the known size of the pool and the amount of water it holds. It is the responsibility of the owner to provide this information. When a homeowner fills a pool from a water supply that is metered at their residence, he or she may request an abatement on the sewer use portion of his or her next bill. If the pool size is larger than 2,000 gallons or more and is completely filled before it is new pool or the liner has been replaced, the homeowner must bring a copy of the invoice showing the size of the pool or liner to the DPW director. The abatement will be calculated based on the current sewer use fee. No abatement will be granted for topping off of a pool or any other outdoor water use. All abatements must be approved or denied by the Board of Selectmen. So that's just a regulation, just to get people an idea of what they can and can't do, that's all. And that's why Brian was bringing up more information, because it's part of the regulation.
Yeah.
And so this one that we have for 480 Main Street, which is a request for an abatement because of a pool liner repair, it looks like, is accompanied by a bill for that work.
Yep.
So, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the abatement request at 480 Main Street.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I guess I would somewhat, I don't know if sad's the right word, but I understandably not going to be what these folks wanted to hear, but I would make a motion to deny the abatement at 44 Plain Road. Given that it wasn't pool related, this had to do with,
And again, and while you're saying that, I just want to let the residents know that if they feel that the meter is wrong, they have the option to have it tested. It's $150 to test the meter. We'll take it out, put a new meter in for replacement until we send it out. We send it out to the meter company for testing. If the meter comes back good, you pay the $150 plus the bill. If it fails, we will reimburse the $150 and we'll recalibrate what we feel is right, correct. So you have that option. Not many take up that option, but.
So this one is, but this is not alleging a failed meter. This is acknowledging that they had a leak, right, in their piping. Right. Okay. Okay. So
I
you
made
made
the
a
motion
motion
on
to
Plain
deny
Road.
this one.
correct.
I'll second that, but make sure they're aware of what you just mentioned, either by phone call or.
When they first,
Yeah.
because before they put out an abatement, they usually call, and we
Right.
give them that option right out of the box. We tell them that, here's your option, if you feel it's a meter, but obviously, they know it wasn't the
Yeah, they
meter.
know it's not the meter,
You
yeah.
know, there was a leak.
Okay, so a motion's made and second. Any further discussion?
No,
No.
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
And then I don't know if this is really a motion, but I would suggest we take no action on the Primrose Path request, given that there's no documentation to it. I understand, by the way, with what Ed just read, it does say you have to request the abatement within 30 days of receiving the bill. So I can understand why a resident would submit it, but I think it needs to be submitted and with more
It's
clarity.
just let's just request if they have the documentation, that's all.
Okay, so I don't know, I'm not approving that denying. Do we just not take any action? Phil, what's your,
Yeah, I think.
can you
that's
reach
fair.
out
Yeah.
to them and just say, here's the deal?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fair.
so we'll just leave it kind of in limbo, I guess, then. Okay.
Great, thank you. Marlene?
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. All right, let's see, where are we here? Okay, financial update. The auditors worked
pretty much all last week on our audit, FY20 audit. They asked for some additional information for FY21. They're doing some, cross-checking. We are aware that there are some variances. Those are being looked at and worked through. So I think we'll be able to report out at the next meeting, in more detail what those variances are after we've had a chance to work through those. So, we may be able to, adjust those variances.
I'm sorry, Marlene. And so would that kind of be the end of, is that the final push from the auditor's perspective at that point? Or you mean we internally, or we internally with the auditor?
Right, so variances, so they will, work with the accountant, the treasurer, or departments even for that matter, looking for additional information. It could be that something wasn't posted correctly or posted to the correct account. Right, it is. It is.
That's kind of my, sorry, I didn't
That
ask
part
it.
of things, sorry for interrupting, but that part of it is an internal thing that Lori and Marlene and I met last week and said, okay, what's left on the table? What can
Internal.
we do about them?
Got
And
it.
go from there. We think the audit-wise, no news is good news. They haven't asked for me for anything, or Lori's since last Thursday, so
motto.
it makes me a little
Yeah.
nervous.
Right.
But there was a lot of paperwork pushed to them, but we were able to respond really quickly to them, so we're hopeful that no news is good news.
I think our meeting a few weeks ago where we had the auditor actually, or a month ago now probably, on the phone with us was a very positive sign for Mr. Roselli. And the comments he made and the praises he sang upon the financial team we currently have in place, and that includes you, Marlene. So I have no doubt that, there's thousands and thousands of transactions take place yearly, so to have a variance here and a variance there is certainly not out of the question. And
Right.
to quote my colleague, Mr. Jaworski, also from a few weeks ago, we're there, man. We are on the 1 foot line, and so
And it is, Nora, there can be variances, but, and Sharon, I know, has agreed with me. She feels the same way. Whatever variance is, you feel you have an obligation to look into it. You
Yeah.
can't just okay,
Right.
and just.
Of course,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but-
we would hope that's what our
You have
financial
to-
team would do.
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
There's some of them that are the ones, same variances from last year, but they want us to carry them and prove it out longer.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating for both Marlene and I, that we want to wrap it up and say, okay, well, this is the same variance, but DOR isn't quite trusting us yet. We need to see that through. So when we do meet with you guys and give you the list of them, there's going to be some you've seen before, and it's just a matter of, we have to hold on until we get their blessing and prove. When you look at this year's audit, 6 months of it was base dates. And it's hard to believe that when you really look at it, but that information is a little bit in question. So we have to get through. Now we're completely with Melanson and they're doing great by us. So that we will have that security for this time next year, that we'll be able to wrap up all of these couple hanging ones that,
No doubt.
make me nervous, make Marlene nervous. We just want to, make sure we're doing our due diligence. So
It's the nature of the process, and it's just all part of the checks and balances. So that's
It is, yeah.
no concern from me on that moving forward. Thank you.
You're welcome. End of the year reporting to DOR is still in progress. So I think when we talked with Lori last week, she was hoping to wrap it up, I think, by the end of this month or this week, later. We have scheduled tentatively to have the tax classification hearing, the FY21 tax classification hearing on November 17th. The assessors are plugging along and are comfortable with having the classification hearing that day.
That's
They'll be
awesome.
ready.
Good, yeah, that's a joint meeting, right?
That is.
Okay.
It is. So that's, things are moving along. Town hall conference meeting space. I have had some conversations, individually with members of the Board of Selectmen. John Novak, our cable TV manager, regarding the ability to have adequate space meeting space. For quite some time, we have run into problems with various boards and committees meeting on the same night and interested in this conference room. John and I have also talked about the ability to have technology so that we can provide meetings, whether it's a conference meeting or webinar, to have the screens and the equipment. And this room isn't quite suitable for that equipment. We also know that the planning board on occasion has had hearings and they've had too many people in this room. So I am reaching out to the Board of Selectmen because we need additional space
May I
to hold
comment?
meetings and to have a proper cable TV studio. This closet is really full at its best.
What's that, about a 4 by 8?
And
Not big, just a bit bigger than a coffin.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment. I've been giving this a lot of thought for the last few months because previously upstairs you had all this stuff for the museum. And there was some thought years ago, I believe, that people thought the upstairs could be a museum. But I just want to give me a couple minutes to go through my train of thought here. I was up there when they had all their stuff, and there was a lot of stuff. So doing some research about museums, not saying I'm an expert, but when you go online, it sort of say, in order to have a museum, you have to have good humidity control. Also, your display area should be the same size as your storage area. So if you have 1,000 square feet of display, you need like 1,000 square feet of supply. Well, we don't have that up there. Even if they were to move their stuff back today, that area is not set up for them as far as humidification, as far as HVAC system. So I think we need to discuss that. Now, I don't want to take away from them, but I did go down to the barn and I looked at the barn, and on the south side up to the parking lot, it's around 40 or so feet, and it's like 100 feet long. So if they were to actually put an addition onto that, you would actually combine everything into one. They could even have a meeting room where they could give classes for the school that's next door. That's just my line of thinking. But it doesn't make sense to, we have a report that it was like $195,000 to do the third floor for your museum, and part of that was the elevators, so let's take half of that, $100,000. Actually, we could put 2 split systems up there and get some air conditioning for less than $10,000. So right now, I know the museum wants to go back up there because they have their storage at the library. But in my mind, this is a town hall. We do need a meeting space. That used to always be the meeting space. And I don't want to upset them because they thought they were coming back up there. But even if they did come back up there, that room's not set up for humidity or air control that an actual museum really needs. So these are issues that I think we have to have discussed maybe with the society or somebody, but right now I would say we use the upstairs for meeting space and help work with them for some kind of long-term solution that would be sufficient for being an actual museum, which could, I don't know if they ever investigated adding on to the barn and going all the way down, because that's like 4,000 square feet of space that you would have all the collections in one spot. You'd have the farm museum on one side. You'd have their collections on the other side. You also could have a classroom to bring people in to give the history of town with the school next door. I mean, those are just my thoughts, and these are things I've been thinking about for the last few months, so I just wanted to share with you.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah,
Very
that's very thoughtful.
informative, yeah. I'm wondering if I may, Madam Chair, I'm wondering, along those lines, that now, as Ed has said it, has made those comments, I'm also wondering if, in fact, starting from scratch wouldn't be a better way for the museum to be able to set into place exactly what is necessary, what is needed to set up a design, like the whole bit, Oftentimes, it's easier to start anew than it is to try to rehab something that already exists. I think it might be different circumstances. I would agree we need the meeting space. The circumstances might be a little different if, in fact, upstairs was move-in ready, but it's not. For a museum, that is. I think we should definitely, and there, by the way, there could also be some grants these days that perhaps would apply here if it were a new type of construction. I mean, if it's a museum, I think you'd somewhat want it pretty open. So you know what I mean? From a construction perspective, I don't know how expensive those things are, but if you're doing it from the get-go, from the ground up, I think you might be able to starting from scratch, be able to pretty much get a good bang for
Phil had
get a good
mentioned-
bang for your buck.
I mean,
Yeah.
Phil had mentioned it'd be nice if we had Sophia Smith's house and make that into a museum. That would be,
Oh, that
I
would
think
be
that
very
was an
cool.
idea.
Maybe if
don't know if that would ever
CPC
be
funds are
possible.
available.
CPC, CPA
Yeah,
funding,
that's-
I mean, maybe.
Community
Yeah.
preservation.
One of my thoughts on this, and I do like your idea of everything being together, but, and I mentioned this last night at the municipal vulnerability meeting, we keep all of our important services all right here,
In a flood.
clustered in a flood zone. I'm not sure I want our whole historical collection in a flood zone. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I think it's part of a much larger discussion about maybe the whole thing being somewhere else that's a little outside of this zone that we know has had not a yearly flood problem, but the major flood problems.
And I'd just like to add,
Just wanna
and
throw
it
that
does
out
make
there.
sense. And normally your museums are in a historical district.
Well, and that, so that's,
yeah.
from that perspective, this location is perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
But I do wonder about keeping our most valuable treasures right there.
That's, yeah, very good point.
So I don't think we're going to solve this tonight, but I think it's
We
something.
should definitely have the conversation.
Yeah, we need to
though.
have the
Yeah.
conversation.
So I just wanted to pipe in on this whole discussion about how this came about with the meeting space be given to the Historic Commission was when the first renovation was going to be done here with the $5 million project is when the whole top floor was going to be from the front to the back with the elevators, the bathrooms, climate control. That's how they obtained that space to start with. That's when the Board of Selectmen had a vote to give them the space, because they were gonna do the whole renovation, and that was gonna be a part of it.
They were going to pay. Who was going to pay
The
to do all
town-
that?
The town. The town was gonna renovate this whole building for $5 million,
Oh,
and it was turned down at town meeting.
Oh, when the whole, as a
Right,
whole.
when it was the
project as a
whole building, top to bottom.
okay.
The first initial renovation of this town hall. And then the Board of Selectmen gave them that space for their museum. And then they came back with well, we're gonna renovate the town hall, hoping they would build support at town floor, which it failed. So that's how they obtained the whole floor.
Or that was the proposal. It's not necessarily that they obtained anything.
Well, they were voted, it's a vote, it was a town, the Board of Selectmen voted the space to them.
Well, yeah, it was part of the $5 million project, but it was
That's
turned
turned to
down.
phases.
so
Yes, but I think it was.
wasn't really approved.
Prior to the $5 million project being put out there. It was, I think they gave them the space first.
Given contingent upon the approval.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, I mean, I can't imagine, though, that they would want the collection there if it's not like you're saying,
Humidity
humidity
control
controlled
and outside air.
because these things are
That
really
first
important.
renovation, this whole empty space above us was gonna be a floor. That was gonna be all the museum, the storage, air, the air quality was gonna be upgraded, air controlled, humidity controlled, a vault, so,
This space never came that way. It
It
never
didn't come,
happened the way they
No. So what-
originally had hoped for.
right. And now, Ed brought up a good point with, your museum collection space and your storage space should equal each other. And now with half the stage or more gone because of the elevator, surely that room and that storage space that they have there now aren't the same. Is not the same.
So, okay, so if this isn't the place for the museum, are you suggesting that we use the meeting space upstairs?
We certainly could use that space up there. It's
And that would be
Larger.
maybe better for John and his
the
operations?
a studio up there.
And then you could still have this here, so that if you had 2 meetings at a
Still
time, you
use
could
this
have
room.
2. But I mean, this,
We could build a control room up there.
There.
I could keep all my gear, I could have my computers up there, we could run multiple meetings, we could hook it up for streaming, we could really, move the transmission point from the high school over here. The studio over the high school is basically unusable because it's a storage room for the school most of the time. And then I have a little control room where I actually send the signal out to the townspeople. That's the most important thing over there. When we used to do live out of there, we had a studio and everybody would go over there. But now the library's been renovated, so it's not the open area that it
Right.
used to be. And now since people need their documentation papers and need to get things, we've had most of the meetings here.
Right.
So everybody's files.
well, and
It's
also
accessible.
now, with everything that's going on, we can't be, no visitors are welcome in there, and as it should be. Nobody who doesn't need to be in that building should be there. I mean, obviously, that will go away at some point, but,
From a security standpoint, if a townsperson wanted to learn from me how to edit, because of the studio being in the front of the school rather than the back, now you're exposing the possibility of students or this person getting out into the school in general, when the studio was in the back, you were kind of next to the door, you come in here, and when you leave, you go out this front door. You don't come to the front door and have to look for me.
so, again, we've talked about the school committee meetings being televised, and they are on, because of everything happening, they're online, and I know a lot of people are going, but at some point, we'll get back to normal meetings. So what do you need over there to be able to?
Well, the library's not hooked up to the studio anymore.
Right, so I know, when I had a conversation with Heather Cahill about this, and she said they really want to have the meetings televised. This was before everything else happened. And then I believe they do want to have them televised. And we talked about how maybe their meetings would have to be here, which should be doable. The select board meetings used to be at the school. I mean, it's all doable. But, that all needs to be part of the discussion too, because I think that all school committee meetings should be televised, just like select board meetings are. So that's all part of the conversation. But, I haven't been upstairs in a while, so can I maybe get up there sometime later this week and start taking a look at that? But what
I just-
exactly are we
sorry.
needing to decide tonight?
Well,
Any-
that, I was just going to say, I think we need to continue a conversation. I don't know that we're deciding anything, but I just want to go on record, and I'm sure I speak for Diana and Ed, for if anybody from the Historical Society or Historical Commission is listening or watching, that this isn't we're not leaving you out with no place to go.
Right, right.
What we're doing is trying to have a conversation, and what's the
Yeah,
best.
I just wanted to open
and
up the
what's the best
dialogue.
place to go.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of
that's-
my point. I
right.
mean, I want to
Yeah.
put this collection in the best
Right.
possible place, but also keeping in mind its safety.
Right, correct.
If and when we ever had, experienced major flooding like we know we have in the past. And according to the climate folks we met with last night, we're likely to have again. So, That's where I'm coming from.
I'm not against anything against the museum. It's just trying to do what's in the best interest, like Brian said, for the town and for the future. Because if you don't have good humidity control, you don't have the right space, it's not going to work anyways. And you don't have that up there. But I mean, you do have a meeting space up there. I mean,
Well, and it would be nice if they did have a, really nice, a nice space, because they do some programming. You were mentioning having a room there, whether it's for school children or even, the Historical Society does really good programming through the year, so space would be nice. Again, like several other things tonight, this is part of a much larger discussion.
It is.
I would agree.
So I would just like to take a walk upstairs at some point later this week. I mean, I used to love it up there. I don't know how much it's
Very
changed, but it was
nice.
always so beautiful up
you can
there.
also take the elevator. It's
I
working.
could take, maybe I will take the elevator.
Not officially working yet until we get
It's
the
not
fire.
official. I might
fire,
wait until it's official.
Control.
So I, for my own,
It's nice up there. It's.
has it
been
changed a
redone.
lot?
Oh yes, they painted it.
The
Phil
floors
made
were
sure
done
that
over.
They got that up done.
Because
right.
I always loved the furnishings and, it was nice.
The floor is
So,
done.
okay, well, I'll take a walk up there. I'm in favor of doing whatever makes the most sense to get as many meetings televised as possible and to make it as easy on John as possible, because we expect a lot of John. And, he comes through, but it would be nice if it was an easier setup.
Well, at the time, it made sense to have the studio and everything at the school, like it is now, because that's where the meetings, including the Board of Selectmen meetings, were held until the town hall went under its renovations.
Right.
Now it's reversed, and
Right,
so
reversed,
everything's here now.
Right, because
So-
before, I was even vocal saying have it at the school when they first started, because the kids were involved. They had, I think,
that's
John
right.
Muse, they were doing games. Matter of fact, they had to delay broadcasting because they were losing money. People weren't going and buying a ticket. They were actually watching
really?
the TV because it was live. So, and it was great. But as John pointed out to me, the kids all have this.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
within
yep.
5 seconds, they got their own movie.
Different
so,
world,
Yeah.
yep.
So,
When that studio was built in the back then, there was no live streaming on YouTube
Right.
or Microsoft Teams. So the only way you could get the signal out to the town basically was to do cable TV. But
Right.
Now you have all.
Right, right.
Other
That's right. It was
options
on cable
available.
TV back when I was on the board before.
I mean, it's still on, but it's delayed.
Did the school committee televise back then?
Yeah, we had,
Yeah,
and
okay.
John had volunteers and
Yeah,
some of the
that's right. There
kids.
were kids that would come
We
and run the
tried to-
cameras
We
and,
tried to actually get a program within the school going to, for audio, video.
I mean,
audio-visual.
you're saying the library isn't set up now to host that kind of thing. I mean, just as I'd be open to going there if there was a space
Yeah.
for meetings, I think that the school has to consider coming here for their meetings once we get past all of this, where we're doing all this online and everything.
Yep.
I think you'll enjoy looking at that room upstairs. It looks nice.
It came
now.
out nice.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have a little field trip this week.
Yep.
Okay. So we're not gonna make any decisions at this point. Well,
I'm just-
we're really not equipped to do that. Okay.
Just, as I said, wanted to just start the dialogue and.
You got to have the dialogue, and we
Again,
need the
yeah.
input from others and other
Yeah.
boards and committees.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So we already did this committee vacancies, correct?
Did,
Yep.
we did.
It was
And-
kind of on
and-
here twice.
Yeah, and so anybody that's ever interested in, looking to see what we do have open on boards or committees, we post that information on the town's website as well. So, the next order of business was, I was hoping to have a draft, well, I did have a draft, but then for the article to
For a
take
special town meeting.
take up the easements for the Route 5 water and sewer project. And then it was brought to my attention last week that there is a new equipment vehicle lease that is going to become effective. And it is a 5-year lease, and that requires town meeting authorization. So the article does not require funding The money is in the town's operating budget, the vehicle lease line item. But this is a 5-year lease, and, pursuant to statute, state statutes.
So
A
that
lease
would have
greater
to
than
be on the
3
warrant.
years has
Do
to
you-
be authorized by town meeting.
It's a DPW vehicle?
There's a number of
Phil
items.
can speak.
It's a number of vehicles.
Okay.
It is it's a dump truck for the DPW, a new transportation van for the school to replace the 2010, the mower for all the fields and town properties.
Which is
And-
older.
A mini excavator.
The one we're currently using is pretty old, isn't it?
2009, I think.
Yeah, okay.
And then a mini excavator for the water department, which they pay into the lease, so.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the funding was approved
The funding-
at annual town meeting. It's basically, this is kind of a paperwork thing, if you will. I mean, I think since Phil's been here, we've gotten into these lease programs, and it's just one vehicle comes off, and sometimes another one gets in, depending where we are. But of course, at some point, a 5-year lease expires, right? So that's where we're at now. It has since expired, even though we have the money. We just need the town to say, yeah, go ahead for another 5 years and continue with the process
Yeah,
that you can do.
it's money that's in line item 425 or something within the
Right.
operating budget that, we don't ask for any more money, we just want to keep that vehicle
Going.
management
Right.
alive. Because if you don't, you're going to come in for, one vehicle for $250,000 and, at town meeting, it might not go through.
Right.
Right. And this is, by the way, just to remind everybody, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, these are the vehicles for the entire town, all the departments. So
Right,
it's not for one
just
particular
DPW,
department.
Right.
When I
It's for
first came
everybody.
here, that was, my argument is that it's not just a DPW vehicle.
Right.
We maintain all the town
Yeah.
vehicles. So, over the years, we've done the police cruisers, the fire department, the schools, we've done them
Well,
all.
in a school van that's 10 years old,
Yeah.
it's time, yeah.
Yeah. It's been a great program, actually.
So then we have, okay, so what will appear on this warrant?
So
will
I
be-
have drafted another article, an article for that, and sent it
Okay.
off to town council to review. I had hoped to have the board approve the warrant tonight, but,
So then we don't need to do this motion that's in here.
well, you still need to take that. That is for public notice, the 7 days to reduce the quorum.
Okay,
But for the next meeting, though, I will have the warrant for the board to approve. I think that has to be posted November 7th, if we're having it on the 21st.
And so the warrant will just state to enter into a 5-year lease, because the money's already approved.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I do have a question, though, Phil, I had asked you, so if the lease that's expiring, are there any vehicles that are insured that we're keeping? Because I need to look at what it's going to cost us for insurance, because of the added items that are coming
Yeah,
on.
if the lease passes town meeting approval, then we will,
We have to insure the vehicles.
once we receive them.
Right, so
And
there's-
once we receive the vehicles will come off.
Okay.
Yep.
So we will
So
not be
just if a
keeping
dump
them.
truck, if we're gonna replace a dump truck, when the dump truck arrives in the yard, the other dump truck that it's replacing is coming off.
Okay.
And the same thing
Okay.
with the mower.
and then ultimately
The mower
what,
will-
surplus?
Yeah.
What's
We
that?
surplus them,
We will surplus them or trade them.
trade them.
Okay, okay.
And the only reason we're doing this because the state regulations say if you have a 5-year lease, it requires town approval.
yeah.
If it's 3 years or less, it does not require.
Yeah, it's a
town
procurement,
approval, that's all.
regulation.
But we don't get as good a rate if it's fewer years, or does that matter? Or, well, the monthly payments would be higher, right? Because it would be 3 years instead of 5.
Right, you
So
wouldn't get it,
that's,
you wouldn't, well, you wouldn't get the vehicles that you're looking to
Right, right.
replace because, we base it on 5 years.
yep, got it.
So something would have to come off.
Okay.
Thank you, Phil.
Yes, thank you,
So
Sarah.
we'll approve the warrant at a future meeting.
Yes, the next meeting.
Okay.
So is this separate, or?
So
That is
now we need to
separate.
take- So there
yeah.
is the allowance, the state has made a provision for us to reduce the quorum that we require for a town meeting special or annual
That's
because of COVID,
right, and that still stands.
and it still
still is in
stands, but we
effect,
have to invoke that for this coming special town meeting. So what we need to decide tonight is the number that we're going to lower that to.
Could be as low as 8.
So our
right.
normal quorum is 75, but we
5.
could go as low as 8.
8, that's correct. So what you're voting is that we have to publish a notice at least 7 days before the November
Right.
21st.
And this
town
is a
meeting.
vote to publish that.
Yes.
But before we do that, we have to decide what the number is, what our number is.
That night of the town meeting, they vote.
No, you post the notice
Notice, yeah.
first that they're going
Going
to
to
take a vote
vote.
on the quorum.
Right.
So you're just
You're
announcing
voting
that
just to
you're gonna
publish
have a
the
meeting
notice.
Which is going to discuss the quorum. So
Okay,
you have to have that 7-day notice. And then at that meeting, that, it has to be 7 days, it could be more than 7 days, but at least 7 days. So then at that next meeting that you've announced, that's when you'll discuss what the.
okay,
Quorum will
gotcha.
be, yeah.
Okay, so we just need to vote to publish this tonight.
That's right. That's the motion, and that's essentially what that notice will be, that you could potentially.
And do you have,
Take
does this motion need to state the date that we're going to make
Yes,
the
at
decision?
the time I had drafted this, I wasn't sure. We were talking about the 14th or 21st. And that was because we weren't sure just if we needed the specific details of the survey, which isn't due until November 1st. And I had talked with town council, and it wouldn't be necessary
Okay.
to have that. So we could have it on the 14th. However, according to Lydia, she still is counting ballots then. So the 14th, she would not, that would not be.
The town meeting. You're talking about having town meeting on the 4th. I just want to know what date we have to make this.
The 21st.
No, I understand we're having, what date do we have to do this?
It doesn't have to be on that night, Marlene. It could be their next meeting. We could post this tomorrow,
Correct.
and then
Okay.
whatever their next
It doesn't
meeting
have-
is.
We make the decision
Then you
about the
vote on
quorum.
the quorum.
That's what I'm
We
asking.
just
Yes.
have
Oh, I'm
to say
sorry.
in the notice which meeting you're doing it at.
And
I'm sorry. I thought
That's
you
all
were-
right, we're saying the same thing differently.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, and so I have no problem making this motion tonight, but just before I do, I'd like to understand it. We're making the motion, we're going to post it ahead of time, blah, blah, blah. And what this motion is going to say is the quorum could be as low as 10%. At our next meeting, that's when we're going to decide it's 10, it's 15, it's 20, what, okay.
Correct,
All right.
correct.
Okay,
So we're
that's what
basically giving the
I wanted to know when
parameters.
we were going to make the decision. That's
Okay.
all. Okay.
Phew. All right. I move the Board of Selectmen publish a notice at least 7 days before the November
21.
21st,
21st.
2020 special town meeting to consider taking steps to reduce the quorum during the COVID-19 crisis with the approval of the moderator, that the quorum can be reduced to a number as low as 10% of what it otherwise would be. And therefore, pursuant to the Town of Hatfield bylaws, which specifies a quorum of 75, could be as low as 8.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
The way I hear that motion, the meeting that you're going to have to discuss what the quorum will be.
This is the same motion you and Joe reviewed.
Right, because their meeting to discuss it was that day. If you're meeting on the 7th, is that your next meeting?
Is that our?
No, the third, well, it should be the 4th, probably. The 3rd's election day, that's
Yeah.
2 weeks.
No, it's the day after, it's the 4th. It's the
Right,
day
so if
after
your next
election.
meeting is the 4th, what you're saying is that's the meeting, that's the date you're going to discuss the quorum.
Yeah,
Correct.
but that's not, you're right, that's not what this motion says.
That's what I'm saying.
Publish a notice at least 7 days before.
To consider taking steps. So we need to specify the date at which we're going to decide.
Right, so you're going to decide it on the 4th for the town meeting to be held on the 21st.
So it'd be 7 days.
So the wording's
before.
got to be a little different because it's a different scenario than last time.
Well,
Okay.
okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I shouldn't say argue, I'm not going to disagree with you guys.
So
But
then at
as long as
least-
we say at least 7 days beforehand, then we're wide open to do it whenever we want, is how I interpret
You have
this.
to have a specific date in there.
Okay, so it would be November 4th then.
If we're doing it in 2 weeks, which we should.
So it would say, I move that the Board of Selectmen post a notice that on November 4th, they will consider taking steps to reduce the quorum.
Correct, and then the notice has to be posted at least 7 days.
The notice of the new quorum gets posted 7 days before November 21st.
The notice of the meeting that you're having to discuss.
That's what, I'm getting confused now.
Yes, I
I
get that,
reviewed-
but
Okay.
also, don't we need to publish before the
I
7
reviewed the
days before?
regulation. I went by the regulation, so I'm getting confused now by what you're saying.
Maybe we need 2 motions to clean it up. I'll make a motion that on November 4th, the Board of Selectmen will decide to reduce the quorum during COVID-19 crisis with the approval of the moderator, that the quorum can be reduced to number as low as 10% of what otherwise would be. Therefore, it could, per the Town of Hatfield bylaws, which specifies a quorum of 75, could be as low as 8. That's for next Tuesday, or next whatever, next Wednesday. And then I make a well, that would have to be seconded. We can either take that as unofficial right now if you want. And then we would make a motion. I move the Board of Selectmen publish a notice at least 7 days before the November 21st special town election, advising what the quorum is. I mean, that's all you're saying? That's all we need to do?
Why couldn't we do that motion at the next meeting?
We probably could, but because they told me to do it tonight, Diana, that's why.
All I know is the board must vote
To hold the
publish a
meeting.
notice.
To hold the discussion about the quorum.
7 days before November 4th.
And she reviewed this before. Her and Joe reviewed it.
That
You
was
re-
for last time.
No, I just sent it to you last week.
Ladies.
I sent this to you last week. And you said, I'm all set
We're on
with it."
Zoom, some decorum, please.
It's the same one that you and Joe received last week. So there's 2 steps. There's steps
Right,
in the process.
which is how do you want to word it?
I think that the motion you just made about November 4th, having a discussion to reduce the quorum, is all we need to do tonight.
November 4th, we'll talk about
We'll
the 7 days
set a
prior.
quorum, and then we'll make a motion to publish 7 days before November 21st.
But the law states that you have to
You
publish a
following
notice
this?
that the board could
I'm
potentially
going to
vote to
withdraw my
consider.
last second of the first motion, and once you
Yeah,
got
I'm
figured out,
withdrawing my first motion too. I don't even know where we stand.
once you
information
determine
that I
what
have.
motion you want to make, I'm waiting to hear.
It's a good thing I took a leave.
All
Okay.
right.
We have to have a motion.
Right, right.
And discuss if we want to change the
Taking steps to
quorum
reduce the quorum for
Yes.
the special
7
town
days
meeting.
prior,
Should have just
Yeah.
had you write the motion.
November 4th, right? So,
I'm good.
As written?
Yeah.
Just
Thank
read
you.
it, because people listening must be confused. Let's straighten this out.
Okay, here we go. So Ed has withdrawn his second. I'm going to withdraw my original motion, if we need to do that officially. Okay. New motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen publish a notice at least 7 days before 7 days before November 4th, 2020, to consider taking steps to reduce the quorum for special town meeting on November 21st, correct? In alignment with the COVID-19 crisis, with the approval of the moderator, that the quorum can be reduced to a number as low as 10% of what is otherwise would be. And therefore, pursuant to the Town of Hatfield bylaws, which specifies a quorum of 75, could be as low as 8.
okay, since everybody's happy with that, I will second it.
Okay, motion made and second. Any further discussion?
I do, sorry. Just for clarification, so when all is said and done, we're going to meet in 2 weeks, like we always do, and that's when we will decide as a board, and in conjunction with the town moderator perhaps, what will be considered a quorum for the day of special town meeting on November 21st. That's what all this motion just said, basically,
Yes.
for those of you
And
at home.
that, then we'll make a motion to post
To make it
the quorum.
official,
Yes.
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
and Marlene, I want to apologize because you did send that to me. It was on a day that I was crazy. And I looked
So
at.
you really didn't look at it?
I did, no, I did look at it, but I looked at it too quickly. And so, yeah, I think, had I been able to digest that a little better, I would have picked up on it, that it was exactly the same as the last one, so yeah.
We got it done
So
in
we
the end.
got there, and so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody, for your assistance with that motion.
No, and the town clerk and moderator should be involved in this process. That's
Key
why I
for
wanted
staying
to
on top
include
of
them.
that mess.
Yeah,
Okay.
delete.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Phil,
What else do we have?
we are going to now take up the Route 5 Water and Sewer Improvement Project contract.
So would you like me to speak to that?
Well, I would, either way,
for
whichever
that
one of
too?
you wants to open this
Okay.
discussion.
Okay. Well, at the last meeting, the Board of Selectmen awarded the contract to the next lowest bidder, Ludlow Construction, pending research and discussion with Town Council. And since that meeting, I have had email communication with Phil, the highway foreman, and Town Council. And while there is evidence that work is done poorly, there's a list of complaints that were filed with the highway foreman from a number of residents dating back to April. And as of recent, October 15th, there is the lack of communication, but there isn't evidence.
There's no
No
documentation
documentation of that.
These, I mean, there's
Right.
14.
Correct.
And I know I had people call me who were very upset about the condition of the road. I've personally been upset about the condition of the road because I travel it all the
Police
time.
chief was notified one day he had to shut down the construction project for a lack of signage, and there were safety issues out there. But we don't have the details of
Okay,
that.
so that's a failure on our part. And we can't have that on projects anymore. So we have to start documenting this stuff.
We also need to have a process for these complaints. If somebody gives a town employee a complaint, what is the process? I would think the process should be initiated where it goes to the department head, and the department head sort of forwards it somehow to the board if there is an issue. And none of these complaints actually came to the board that we were aware of. We had heard some residents' complaints, but we don't have any clear documentation. And at the same token, not saying that's a good thing, but if you don't tell the contractor things are wrong, he's not going to correct it. So, I mean, that becomes another issue.
Yeah, I was going to say this
And,
same thing.
I mean,
Yeah, so that is another issue. So anyway, Phil?
Yes. So all the complaints that were filed were, whether verbally or through an email, were turned over to the consulting engineer through CEI. So, because they were in contact.
They have documentation of this then?
Well, it was verbal, that's what I'm saying, but it was, and they would notify Gallagher to fix whatever had to be fixed. There was a
The
little bit of.
engineer should have been notified
Right.
as well.
Yes,
Okay, so the bottom line is, if we're going to have this same contractor do the 5 and 10 project,
yes,
we have concerns
we do. have
about
concerns.
running into this same kind of problem on a road that is even more busy, a project that is much larger. And so I have concerns about that. And that's what I raised last week, and I stand by those concerns. Now, I was told Gallagher's on this call. Can they address this issue? I mean, is someone on the call on the computer from Gallagher? Will give you an opportunity to address this if that's what you'd like to do. Hello?
This is Ryan from Gallagher.
Hi, Ryan.
Hello.
So did you want to address some of our concerns about this? Is this, I mean, we can,
Ask 'em.
have you been listening to the meeting?
I didn't hear hear what was said. I mean, I listened in on the last meeting, and obviously I listened in on this meeting as well. I don't know if now is the time to go through all of these things, or is it something that should be set up with the engineer and DPW and whoever at a later date? I didn't know, what are your exact concerns? That's what I didn't hear when I was on the call trying to listen. The volume is not that good.
Well, I mean, if you watched the last meeting, you know the concerns we raised about the condition that the road was left in for the duration of the project. That's my concern. We're now talking about this.
Yeah, I'll field that. So phase two or phase three that we're currently finishing, that's crossing the bridge. We were low on that contract. We waited a duration of time, and the engineer reached out to me and said, if we give you the contract but give you a change order deduct and take the permanent patch out of your contract, we could get this, into the budget for the town to get this work done. Then the town would take over, and have to do the permanent patch through Chapter 90 or general funds. So I agreed to do that. So there's immediately a change order issued. So what we had to perform was a temporary patch, which in typical construction goes in for a duration of time. It then gets removed and replaced with a permanent patch, which you have in place right now on 90% of the project. There was a duration of time that went on, and Phil had expressed concerns about the temp patch versus, but I didn't own the permanent patch in my contract. So you guys, for lack of better words, bought apples and wanted apples and oranges. So I was approached and asked by Phil and the engineer to submit a price this summer to do a permanent patch. And I was also told by the highway super that they were working on possibly doing it themselves with their funding and their staff. So I said, okay, I can give you a price or not. And then they went down the path to do the work themselves with another subcontractor. I expressed how I would handle the means and methods of doing the work, which was different means and methods of what the highway super had, and it was a little bit more efficient and cost savings for the town, and that's the avenue they ended up going. So there's all the contract documents have that with the original base scope and the change orders through Michael Ohl. So I understand your concerns with the temp patch, but it was just temporary, and I don't know if the intent of the town, because I was never told until we had a meeting. I don't know when exactly that was. Was it in June or July, I think, Phil? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it could have been, yeah.
He said it could have been, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in that time frame. I don't have my notes in front of me. So, I understand that's one of the concerns that obviously is a major concern of yours, but I didn't have it in my contract to do that work. The temp patch goes in, you do the work, place the gravel, temp patch is going to settle, things are going to move. It's just soil conditions and part of the process too. Then when you do the final, you don't have any settlement or movement.
So you're talking about the conditions that we're experiencing right now, right? Because there's still two sort of big divots or patches.
So the approach of the bridge, if you're coming from Brockway and the opposite side,
Yeah.
So there's some concrete that's getting placed. There's the bridge, the superstructure that goes in with the water main. So the water main is completed except for the tie-in at the end of the project and then right at the bridge. So that is not permanent. It's temporary, but that is going to be connected once we place the bridge abutment and set the superstructure there for the water main.
Right,
There is design, and then the manufacturer got riddled with some COVID this summer, so that's why there's been some delays on that.
Phil, did you want to speak to what he just said?
No, he's correct, that the two spots that are on each side of the bridge now are due to the bridge. That when they connect, when they set the bridge and they make their connections, those two spots will be patched.
So
Approved upon now, though, right? If
I
Well-
can't hear.
You can't hear Phil?
If that's Phil speaking, I can't hear him.
You have to come up.
You probably have to come up here, Phil. Sorry, we're trying to do this with this remote stuff. It's a little clunky.
I understand.
So Phil just was, you want to just repeat what you said about, yeah, you want to sit over here, maybe?
So Ryan, I just said to the board that that's true about the two spots that are on each side of the bridge now, due to the fact that the bridge isn't set. Once the utility bridge is set and the connections are made, those two spots will be patched.
Correct.
Okay, but Ryan, I just want to be perfectly clear about my concerns. Now, you've explained what's happening out there now and how that will be corrected. But the reality is that the condition that that project was left in, really for the duration of the project, was concerning to me as a traveler of that road and concerning to the residents along that road. And that's, these 14 calls have to do with that. So my concern is that this next project is on such a heavily traveled road, a road controlled by the state, right? So I don't want to, and I can only imagine you don't want to get into any hot water with DOT on this. And this, this project is just, it's a large and very important project. And I have concerns because of the way the other project was left at various times about awarding the bid. And I've been very open and honest and clear about that. So those are my concerns.
Right, and I understand those concerns. Through Mass DOT, we do quite a bit of work with Mass DOT. We did a project direct with Mass DOT and had extremely high scores with them. There again, on that project, there is the temporary patch. There is the permanent patch. There is a specific in those contract documents. There is a bond that the contractor has to supply to Mass DOT direct. And there's also a bond direct to you, Town of Hatfield. And there's a warranty period with Mass DOT and myself through that bond as well. And there's very stringent specs on that. So provided that the contract's awarded as a whole and there's no, the permanent patch items taken out, which seems to be, I understand there were some general housekeeping things. I get that, sometimes it's just site conditions, but I would have to say the blacktop is the biggest thing that's driving home, but provided that is not taken out, which I don't think it would be because your project's under budget, I haven't heard any different. I'm going to end up owning all of that, so it's all on me and straight through the DOT.
Okay, I'm just going to, Bill, did you want to speak?
I just want to say, Brian,
Can you turn that so he can see you?
I just think that one thing that really lacked in this last project on Chestnut Street was communication. I think that was one of the big problems, that not only with you, but with our engineering firm, because really there was really no clerk of the works there, so to speak, where this time CI is providing a body to watch the project on the Mass DOT jurisdiction, correct?
I believe that's comprehensive, and I'm not going to disagree with you, Phil. It was, I understand you guys had your staff on site for inspection and the process, which, as far as the workmanship, there's no issue. I get it. You're folks have to be pulled off to do other things, to take care of general business in town. So, yeah, if CEI is gonna have a resident engineer on staff all the time, it's gonna lighten your load a little bit and make it a little bit easier for you, for sure. I mean, we deal with projects like this all the time, we're used to this. I guess it's not the norm when there's not a full-time inspector there with us, because if we run into an issue or a problem, you know, someone's right there on staff that can make phone calls and try to resolve things,
Well,
but also be there as another set of eyes.
right. And like I said, communication is the key. You know, we don't want to burn the bridges with Mass DOT, that's for sure.
No, as do we not. We don't either. I mean, like I said, we just finished a project with them. I think the closeout documents were this summer, and there was a high score. And I mean, it's a continuation of things that grow. And you know, I wish that they knew that the severity of some of these concerns before, and we could have had a meeting or conversation before the first meeting to kind of go through some of these, because there's always two sides to every story, and I just, you know, I understand that the inner workings of contracts and things, they rely on you and your expertise for that, but when it comes down to it, certain things are not owned by the contractor. You know, we can't get, and
Plus, I think during, you know, the first part of this water transmission project here on Chestnut Street, that the overall conditions of the time frame that it was done wasn't the best. It kind of stretched out for a few years here.
yeah, there was some. I think I don't have my notes in front of me for the beginning of that project, but I think there was definitely a delay in awarding of the project. I don't know if it was for funding or what exactly it was. I don't know what side it was, where that was caused, but you know, I'm more than willing to sit down with the select board, yourself, Phil, and go through some of the fine-tooth items and make sure these bullets are taken care of for sure, if that's what they like, or one of the select board members with yourself and Michael Wolf.
Well, I think with the next project for the Mass DOT, for the Mass Works project, I think it's different because of the jurisdiction of Mass DOT. You have to bond them, you have to bond us, but still, any complaints and phone calls are not going to DOT. They're going to come right to full Genovese, and that's what we want to avoid.
Yeah, and no, I do 100% as well.
Will,
That's not what our goal is. I mean, everything has little bumps or hiccups. I know there were some other little things with traffic control and stuff, but we worked through those things. I mean, Route 5 is a different thing, and that's why Michael had set up a meeting for a round table for all the departments at Power and everyone that was in part of this project. And I mean, I would plan and I would have a meeting with DOT prior to starting as well, as long as the COVID's not an issue, just so I have all the pertinent contact information and they have mine. So if there happens to be something that's minor or minute, you know, they can reach myself direct.
so would there, I mean, I'm assuming there'll be a pre-construction meeting. Would Mass DOT be part of the pre-construction meeting, as well as, I'm assuming you do that for the town? Phil?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought you were talking
No.
about. Yes, no, we had a pre-construction meeting set up for last Wednesday, which didn't happen because of the contract award.
Okay.
And I don't know who CEI had invited. I know the police chief, myself, and I don't know I'm pretty sure he reached out to DOT.
Ryan?
Yeah, I remember seeing yourself, Bill, Michael, myself, the EIT and police chief on there. I don't remember seeing a DOT contact.
Yeah.
Well, it might not be a bad idea
No.
to involve,
At least invite them, if they
yeah.
show, is,
exactly,
you know.
Exactly, invite them. And I think that there needs to be a clear communication process here. And I'm not speaking to you, Ryan, on this necessarily, but to Phil and to Marlene, and for you to relay to Garrett, that if we get complaints, if people have issues with how this is happening, the condition that it's left in, anything like that, that there needs to be documentation, things need to be communicated. In other words, if a call goes in to one town employee, it shouldn't just stop right there. It should be communicated around and dealt with, and residents or businesses or passers through, whoever complains, these things need to be addressed. And I do want to give my colleagues a minute to, because I'm sure they probably have
No,
some-
I just wanted to pick up on what Ed had mentioned, which is, quite honestly, if there are issues or concerns, it's only fair that we then share them with the contractor, because to them, they might not know, or whatever the issue is might not really be an issue once it gets explained to us why a certain thing happened the way it did. So, I mean, the communication's got to be with everybody that's involved with this project. We have an awful lot riding on this, quite
Yeah,
frankly.
for sure. When is the when are shovels supposed to hit the ground?
Is it going to be November 4th?
So this project is going to be in process through the winter?
No. Not
It'll be done?
No. It's going to start, it has to start on November 4th.
Okay.
But Mass DOT is going to regulate when you can and can't, so.
And I would assume they
It's going to be
would
by
say
December.
no.
By
Oh.
December, I would say they're going to kick you off your highway,
Yeah,
that's for
okay.
sure.
If not before, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so then it would resume again in the spring?
Mass DOT has, it's in the contract documents, there's a cutoff date for when work can be, and I believe it's second week in November, typically, second or third week.
Okay, so this project isn't really happening until spring?
Not the major work.
So,
There's other work.
so in other words, we don't have to worry that that the condition of the road is going to be poor heading into a snowstorm?
No. Because anything that Ryan or whoever the con,
At this point, you're in October 20th. If you were to make a motion to award to us by the time paperwork, bonds, et cetera, pre-construction meetings happen, it wouldn't make sense to go out with the amount of work and the deep cuts that are on the road.
Right, okay,
To do that and then have to deal with that through the winter.
Okay.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
Okay.
That's not something that we want to do. There's other areas that can be worked that can start to trigger the funding process, is what I
Okay.
was told from the engineer.
okay. So I'm just giving Ed a chance to,
Oh, I'm going to say, if we get complaints, we call it sharing the pain, that's all. So, we like to share the pain. If we're getting under pain, everybody's going to be under pain.
Right.
I mean, if you have a kickoff meeting, I would suggest either Madam Chair or somebody else attend that kickoff meeting to be part of the process.
I'm happy to
And-
do that.
And as you have the clerk of the works, maybe get monthly updates or bi-monthly or every 2 months or something, that's all.
Yeah, okay.
No, and I, just to recap on that I understand that, like, paving the frustration of that, I think that, yes, the communication, if I had known the severity of it, and we didn't go into the COVID time, I would have had no problem coming in and explaining and speaking of, what you guys owned and I owned in the contract and what you guys got. I mean, I worked
That would have
with
been
Phil
good to know.
and Michael to make the project, the phase we're on now, happen within the budget to get that part done. By eliminating the permanent path.
Okay. To me, this means that moving forward, we're just going to have a better communication and documentation process on projects, large and small.
Well, that'd be part of the clerk actually taking photographs and writing everything down and
Yeah.
and documenting everything too,
And-
so.
I still think you need to be involved and out there and
Oh,
keeping
well,
an eye on it.
Right, we need the internal
Yeah.
people as well, right.
Yep.
Well,
Okay.
I don't want to keep going, but so, Ryan,
Sorry.
thank you. No, I just lost my train of thought. I was simply going to say, ultimately, even with the clerk of works, though, we get the call. We, and I'm, Ed, Diana, myself, or Phil, or Marlene. And so that's why the communication internally is going to be very important, that we're kept in the loop. We don't want to micromanage, or at least I don't, but I want to know that something might be coming my way, or if something does come my way, somebody internally has an answer to it. That's all.
Yep.
Because we do need to get back to to the resident or business, or whoever reaches out to us, expects us to get back to them, and that's certainly a very legitimate expectation, is that we keep our citizens in the know. So that's all I would say. That's more for ourselves, not you, Ryan, but that's,
Absolutely. It's going to be key because, I mean, every day that we're out there, we're going to need traffic control and police details,
Right.
filled for that. So it's going to be months, and there's going to be disruption. But we want to try and minimize that. And the more productive we can be, and the better flow we have, the sooner we'll be out of the road and traffic, be able to resume. Because part of the project is not in the road.
Yeah, I mean, normal construction disruption is acceptable.
right.
But some of what was, left for over weekends and that sort of thing on Chestnut was not good. So I don't want to experience something like that again. And I just wanted to be very clear about that.
Cool.
Okay, so do we have to change our vote?
You'll have to vote to award it to Gielaher.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that the Route 5 Water and Sewer Improvement Project contract be awarded to Gielaher Construction. I don't have the amount in front of me, Marlene, if you need that as part of your motion.
I'll second that due to all the new information we found and
Yes.
also our advice from legal, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do this based on advice from legal and the assurances from Mr. Gielaher tonight that we're going to have a different scenario on 5 and 10 than we had on Chestnut Street.
I think
So
it's Gielaher Enterprise.
is the official name of your business Gielaher Enterprise? Is that how we should award this?
Gielaher Enterprises, Inc., yep.
Okay.
So I will amend my motion to, rather than Gielaher Contractors, to award the bid to Gielaher Enterprises Incorporated.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. A motion's made and second. Any further discussion?
No, I just want to say if you can be at a kickoff meeting and we work on communication and
Yep.
I think we can make it doable with communication.
I agree.
I'm happy to attend a pre-construction if, well, actually, I don't know if you want to do it. You're the DPW. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, one of us will be
The
there,
chair
or Ed,
or the
because he loves that kind
DPW
of
or
stuff.
Ed,
So,
yeah, whatever. We'll find out when it is and we'll figure that out,
We
okay?
can even take turns going to a meeting once in a while.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. So, okay, so all those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
thanks, Ryan,
Thank you
for the
for,
explanations.
and the assurances.
And I
We
do
will
wanna-
hold you to them.
I want to point out, this is because we have the $2 million money involved, we don't want to mess that up either. So we just want to make sure we're on schedule with the Mass Works schedule that we have,
Yep.
so that otherwise we get penalized. That's all I want to say.
Thank you,
Agreed.
Ryan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Phil, you did hand us one more thing tonight. This was this
The solar?
solar? Phil, you should have just stayed in the chair.
Yeah, so I just gave the board an update that I received today about the solar project at the school. I've been working closely with the contractor down there, and as you can see, it's almost done. Hopefully tomorrow, or this week, they're gonna take the stuff off the top roof, and they're gonna do the lower roof and then the connection, so they're gonna have a little power disruption down there. But it went pretty smooth, no complaints, they did a good job, and hopefully we'll cut some electricity bills down there at that building.
That'd be great. Now, when the power disruption, will that be during school hours?
They're gonna try to schedule it non-school hours for like maybe on a Wednesday.
Yeah,
I mean, he
'cause
knows the
nobody's
schedule there. So, we've been working,
Okay.
that whole,
Good one.
that whole timeframe where even with the crane, to bring the crane in and out is not during school hours or during when school is in session.
I'm assuming they'll be notified before the power. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thanks for that update.
Yeah, thanks, Phil.
I've been keeping an eye on it a little bit as I drive around down there. Okay, Marlene, did we want to have a, like, initial, I know this telework policy is just sort of, we're a starting point, correct?
Well, you received several weeks ago a draft, reached out to, so that draft was sent to department heads to review and comment, and I received 2 responses.
Okay, and
I
they were?
reminded departments that, to review and submit comments, input. The library had just said that there's only 2 people, that herself, the director, and another employee that have been working remotely, and that or they're there on site at the library too, but not open to the public. So it's working out. And the police chief had just referenced comments that it should exclude emergency personnel, which it would.
Right, and it
obviously.
also.
And so I have.
It also excludes DPWs, inspectors, even the library. So what are they doing if no one, are they able to still lend books?
They are book orders. They're taking book orders.
Book orders, okay.
Yep.
Okay,
And then they have drop-offs and pickups.
Yeah,
And they're
okay.
also coordinating with the Council on Aging director
Yep.
to
Right.
provide books to the
so
seniors.
what and I read through this.
This is the second draft.
Right,
have
I
tweaked it.
want to make sure, obviously, we're drafting this and we're giving it a lot of thought right now because of the situation with COVID. But I want to formulate a policy that will function beyond COVID and for other reasons. We talked about somebody having a recovery where they might maybe be up to working, but not necessarily coming in or something like that.
Yeah,
So I
and there
just
has
want to
been
make sure that
language.
we're not making a COVID telework
Right.
policy, but, and so a couple of my questions as I reviewed this is I want to be, who does this actually, who can, the Board of Selectmen can institute this policy, but who exactly is affected by it, right? So we mentioned DPW workers in here, but they have a union contract. Obviously, the school is a whole different thing, but we have employees that work for elected boards. How does this affect them? They're still town hall employees.
They are.
And then, so a list of who actually has to abide by this
So I think-
will be helpful.
Yeah, under responsibility of management, the department had the approval of the Board of Selectmen
Yep.
or chair, it could be the chair, or a board or committee chair in the case of where you have employees that work for an elected board.
Okay,
I'm throwing that out there. These are, I'm suggesting that the department head must get the approval of the Board of Selectmen or the chair of the Board of Selectmen. And it could be the Board of Selectmen approve any, whether you're an employee that works directly for another board.
that's the
The
most
committee?
consistent way to do this.
That's true.
Otherwise, you're
That's
going to have
true.
people working under all different policies that's just not fair.
So I'm just opening that up for discussion as I have in there, or board or committee chair. But these policies are set by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so I think that's something we need to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also, in reading the paragraph about the provision of equipment,
So really,
security is an issue
Yeah.
for some of this.
and most employees that work remotely or have a laptop, it's not every employee, it's really your managers. The managers have town laptops
Okay,
that are provided
so they
by-
have all
by
the
the town.
necessary
You
securities
have it.
and,
And our IT has set up our laptops to access the town's network.
okay.
So we have access to.
I just want to make
do
sure
that.
that we're making sure that all of this is done securely.
Well, and my recommendation, and I strongly recommend, is that any employee that is going to work remotely with the approval of the Board of Selectmen must do it through the town's network. They must be on the town's network.
So it says here, town must ensure access to town time. What does that mean?
Time reporting.
Time
They're
reporting.
reporting
Okay.
it,
Okay.
that they're working remotely. It has to be recorded on the timesheet.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
If I may, sorry.
So we'll be able to,
I welcome
I
input
was just
from-
going to say, I am a firm believer in working remotely. And I say that because, we're.
Did it for years
we-
myself.
Right, we all know what we know because of what we do. So I've been doing it for years. By the same token, I also have a job that's conducive to that. My job is about talking on the phone all day and responding to emails all night. That's kind of how that's a whole nother story. Anyways, but because I'm not customer facing anymore, it's different. But we have employees who are customer facing. They're sitting here with us today, yourself included. And so my concern about us moving forward, which I think we should, is I believe it's going to be a balancing act for us and the department heads with their employees. Because you know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, as long as I can have access to a phone, the customer, in this case, the residents, can call me. But if I'm not there, who are they going to speak to if they come in person, if they need documentation from Sharon or Lydia or something from Key's office or from you, so I guess I'm afraid that we're going to maybe create some animosity amongst ourselves if we don't do this properly, because I don't want people saying, oh, well, she gets to work from home. Well, right, because that's the type of job Diana has. You can't have a DPW guy or woman working from home because you have to be behind the wheel of a vehicle. That's your job, right?
I think the policy should be written that it's there for special circumstances.
Right.
So right now, we're all living in special circumstances, but I could see a time, say 2 or 3 years from now, when maybe there's just something unique that comes up for Lydia where, for whatever reason, she needs a temporary ability to work from home, maybe for a couple weeks, whatever it might be, and then you invoke this policy. This is not meant, I am not putting it out there as a, let's figure out who can work from home and have this.
right, and that's not what this is intended to do.
That is not what it's intended to do. And it is intended to alleviate what you're talking about
Right.
and make things fair. We are a public service organization. We are here to serve the public. The public is our customers.
That's right.
And for the most part, we can't do that from home. Under special circumstances, we might have to
Right.
adjust. We've all had to
Right.
do that. But in general, people who work for the town should be working in the town offices or town buildings. Yeah, but you're going to have to come to the microphone.
Just 2 things. I'm not sure the policy would actually apply to an elected official. And second, is there some sort of component in there when, if someone is out and then like other departments have to be covering for that department because no one's there at the office? So instead of going to the assessor's office, they go to the treasurer's office, and because the assessor isn't there. So instead of, so there's.
Well, that's part of my point, is that,
Yeah.
this, to me, this will be done on a very case-by-case basis, okay? So you're probably right. An elected official gets to make their own hours, and, we don't have jurisdiction over an elected official.
Right.
Although I would hope
You
that
just picked me because I was sitting in front of you.
but I hope that elected officials would understand the intent behind the policy.
Right.
It's to ensure that townspeople are coming to the town hall and finding people that can help them.
And I actually, it would be very difficult almost impossible really, to work remote, because everything is like in the vault.
That's what I'm saying.
Stay
So,
computer.
yeah, so,
My position, you can't do that.
right. So
It's why I worked all through the construction.
yeah, so I'm not sure what you're asking.
No.
I mean,
The point I was
Should
trying
be
to
adequate
make.
coverage if somebody's working remotely.
that's
That's-
exactly.
No, the point I was
That's the
just
question.
trying to make is the compensation for other departments having to cover for.
And that shouldn't be happening.
No,
So if
that shouldn't
other,
be
if,
happening.
if there can't be provisions made within the particular office, so in other words, if Sharon, heaven forbid, threw her back out tonight, and I know, sorry, Sharon, had to be working at home for 4 weeks, okay, while you recovered. But, she was up to saying, like, I can do some things, so she can do some work from home, but she also has other people in the office who are still here to serve the public.
Correct.
If we get into situations where people are working from home and that requires an office to be closed, that creates a problem, in my opinion, for how we're serving the public.
That's exactly what.
And
yes,
that's what I want this policy to cover.
Thank you.
I would also add, if I could, and it's not to be fresh or wise, but the idea of the policy is to have adequate coverage. I mean, last minute stuff happens, but this is about trying to plan ahead as best as possible. So I know it's hard, especially for you guys who know every single person in town. But if somebody comes to you and says, I wanted to see Marlene, she's not in today, by the way, whether it's working remotely or just out for the day, you just have to say, she'll be back in on Monday. Don't come open an office, you just have to say, I'm the town clerk, I'm the town collector, I'm the town treasurer. That's not my thing. I'm sorry. She or he will be back tomorrow or whenever they're coming back. And I know it's hard because it puts you in a tough situation, but people need to realize what your role is, or you can nicely say, I don't have access to that information today. Call and leave a message. They're checking their voicemail. Send them an email. They're checking their email. I mean,
Yeah, to me, this is not meant to be, I'm going to work from home tomorrow. I'm going to, it's not a temporary back and forth. This is a policy for when special circumstances
happens,
arise.
right.
Not, I want to go away, take a 3-day weekend, but I'll check emails on Friday and then it'll count as working from home and I didn't have to take a vacation day. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when longer term things come up.
Right.
And I hope we never experience a collective one like we have this time again. But I'm talking about just very special circumstances that might come up that would
Right.
require.
And I just want to say that, and this is not meant to be disrespectful to an elected official or anybody that works for an elected board, but the Board of Selectmen set policies, these HR policies, and those policies are applicable to all town employees.
Right. I mean, so you can't have, even
Right.
though people may work for elected boards, they're bound by the same personnel policies. Right? You can't have somebody who works for an elected board who gets 6 months vacation time.
Right.
Because they
That's what I'm trying
decide to
say.
give it.
You have to be
Yeah.
consistent.
Right.
and
Ed, did you
fair
want to
across
add
the board.
anything?
No, I think the only intent of this policy was special circumstances,
Right.
and it's got to be understood. It's only on a adds needs basis, right?
And prior
Temporary.
approval
It's not-
and all of that.
It's not for everybody.
Temporary, as it states,
Right.
temporary telework policy.
Right.
But given that we're still in COVID and in this pandemic, I know exactly where Lydia's coming from, because there were 3 of us that kind of lived in this building through the COVID time, and so we took on a lot more responsibilities trying to make sure things were done. To Brian's point, we need to, say no and push it off, but at the same time, if we're gonna incorporate this, we may end up back in that in the next couple of months in that.
And teamwork's important. Don't get me
listen,
wrong. I wasn't like, don't ever help somebody else.
Yeah, no.
But if it's interrupting your job,
Well, I can see that we may end
All
up in
the
the
time.
same situation
Right.
again this winter. If we go through COVID again and the numbers are increasing, then let this happen. And so I just want you to think about that as you do it, is that.
When we're shut down, you also don't have people coming in asking for things.
True.
But, you know,
To some extent,
under,
they still didn't want to answer the phone answered. Like, there were people frustrated that you would call and they'd have to leave a message and get called back.
Right.
And that's where they would end up calling us again because we transfer it and it was a repeatable thing. So it's just something to think about, I think, right, Lydia? That there's a whole lot of this in this COVID situation
Yes.
that could happen.
Absolutely,
Yes.
thank you.
And I actually, you know, think that if someone reaches out, we should try to help as best we can, regardless of if the person who really should be doing it is here.
And that's what we were doing.
Yeah,
At
of
times
course,
it
and I
was-
know that.
yeah.
I'm sure Marlene put in more hours, I put in
Yes.
more hours, she put in more
Yes,
hours.
yes.
At times it was,
But not where it
But we
affects
did
your
want
job.
to, right.
That was my point. I didn't say
Well,
that, but, you know.
it
Yes.
was.
Yes.
And I can say
So,
it
yeah.
was. It was a juggling act at times, but we wanted to make sure that, again, we were serving the
Yes.
public.
That is at the heart of, you know, what we want to make sure that this policy. Listen, we always want to make sure that we're accommodating our employees, but not at the expense
Correct.
of serving our residents. Yeah. Okay. So that's just kind of a starting point. Those were my concerns with it. But, you know, just making sure we delineate exactly who's covered by that policy is important. And even if it isn't elected officials, maybe there could be language in there saying that we hope that,
Right.
you know, that would still.
And I had added that clause exclusions, that section
Yep.
there, it says exclusions from the policy.
So, you know, I don't know if, I don't think we're quite ready to vote on it yet, are we? I mean, could we talk about this at a department heads meeting?
We could.
I mean,
sure,
I know that
absolutely.
you,
Place to have.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, I know that you sent
think
it
it's
out
im-
and got only minimal feedback.
Well, this second draft hasn't been sent out to
Okay.
the departments.
So maybe
have
we
a-
send it out and let
do
department
that for
heads
the
know.
next meeting.
Maybe, I want to make sure it's a meeting that I can attend, so maybe you and I can talk tomorrow about schedules and that sort of thing. And then I'd like to hear from, if they could really be encouraged to attend this meeting. That would also be good. Okay. So I think that'd be a good next step on that.
Absolutely.
Sure. Anything else?
Oh, that is all I have.
I know.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.